Hello, it has been quite a while. Welcome back to Scouching Live. It is May 21st, 2024. Oh my goodness, it is almost June. Can you believe it, producer AJ, who is also in the room with me? One, how are you doing? And can you believe that it's almost June? You have no other option, I suppose.
Don't. Oh, there we go. Now my mic's working. Yes, I can believe it.
Okay, well, fine then. But my goodness, welcome back to Scouching Live. It has been a little while, and lots has happened since the last time we did a show. And we're going to go through it all with you today. Of course, we are brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link code below or scan the QR code in the stream window to provide a kickback to the show on anything you buy in the store. You can also support us through Puck Preps Hockey, where you can get all your NCAA and CHL draft prospect needs, as well as Fractal Hockey Consulting, my business for hand-tracked targeted player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA, Europe, and beyond, with solutions for any organization's needs. And of course, Scouching.ca, where you can get exclusive access to innovative data tools. There's going to be more and more exclusive content as the draft approaches and after the draft finishes. And you'll get unparalleled insights into draft prospects and players making their way into the NHL. As a teaser, once the NHL playoffs are over, we're going to start doing pieces about the best available players of a certain type of player who supporters and subscribers will be submitting. So I've already started working on a few of those, and those will be subscriber only and accessible after the NHL season concludes. Also, I do want to say that I'm going to be in Montreal this weekend at the Golden Bucket Tournament. There are still about 5 slots available before we have what we would consider a full tournament. If you're unaware of what the Golden Bucket Tournament is, it's a tournament that is basically for NCAA, Division I, Division III, U Sports, CHL, even as low as like a junior A level player graduating and moving on to other greener pastures to play in front of European scouts and general managers. And it's not just, SHL teams. There's going to be teams from Austria, Spain, France, Germany, what else? I believe Switzerland, Italy, Poland. I'm trying to think. Britain, there will be a team there. So there's going to be a lot going on. I will be doing a presentation on behalf of Fractal Hockey to talk about the work that we do. And it's going to be a lot of fun regardless. So if you or anyone you know might be interested in such an opportunity, learning a little bit more about how hockey works over in Europe and maybe earning yourself a chance to play over there, then get in touch or register directly through the website at goldenbucket.ca, and hopefully see you there on Saturday and Sunday in Montreal. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm very, very excited. First thing I wanted to get through today, though, I cursed another thing. I seem to be really good
for shame,
at
Will.
making
For
the
shame.
opposite of a thing happen. Yeah, PWHL Toronto was up 2-0 in their first round series against Minnesota, and they blew it. They got shut out twice in a row, lost game 4 in double overtime.
What was it you were saying, Will?
I was saying they were gonna tie the number of series wins that the Toronto Maple Leafs have had since the 2005 lockout, and they didn't. They were up 2-0 and they lost 3-2 in the series. And it made me sad.
Your fault.
It is all my fault. And game 5 was not even, it was kind of close for a while, and then it just did. It was 4-1. Toronto getting shut out twice in a row and then scoring 1 goal in a game 5 in a best of 5 seems just so on point. And unfortunately, it went that way. Losing Natalie Spooner, I must say, was not great. She scored, I think, 20 goals for them this year, which, is nothing to scoff at. And without her, it seemed like they didn't really have a whole lot going on there. So that's all I really wanted to say about that. So sorry about that. I'll try harder next time to
nobody accepts
not
your apology.
do anything. I don't care. That's okay. That's fine. I'm okay with it. I just have to get it out because, man, I honestly thought it was going to happen, and it very much didn't. But anyway, on to the NHL, because holy smokes, AJ. Oh my goodness. What a week.
Lots and lots of stuff has happened.
Where do we start? All the semifinal series are done.
That's what matters the most, right? Will, it doesn't matter about the playoffs.
Are they in the playoffs?
No, but
oh, okay.
No, but we can start with the playoffs. That's more important.
It is much more important.
I'm just being a rear end.
Being a homer. That's all. It's okay. We need more homers in Toronto. There's not enough of them.
We actually do.
Maybe, yeah. But anyway, I mean, what do we do? Vancouver, Edmonton, because that's the one fresh in everyone's minds. Holy smokes!
Thank God. Thank God Edmonton won, man. Like,
the magic finally ran out on the Canucks.
Dude,
yeah.
Vancouver didn't deserve to be in that series the way they played in comparison. Like, come on.
It was a bit scary at times. Yeah. It was a bit scary, and I feel like everyone kind of knew it. I mean, I gotta hand it to Artur Silovs, though.
He was incredible.
I know he doesn't have like the sparkling save percentage you would expect, but gosh, man, the Oilers were just ripping Vancouver apart a lot, and he made some saves. He made some saves, man, like capital S saves, on both ends of the word, S and S saves, like huge, like 2 goal posts. He was great. I mean, magic fairy dust, and unfortunately fairy dust isn't infinite, and you're right. I think you're right. The better team won. I mean, Edmonton, that game could have been much more lopsided than it was, in my view, in game 7. I mean, but that
they
top
barely had any shots until
I know.
Third.
Yeah,
it was
I think the shots, it was like 21-5 or something at one point. Like
and that was like going into like the set. Like that was at some point in the second too.
Yeah, they got to 20 shots, I think, before Vancouver got to 5. Like that's insanity.
Yeah,
and
in a game 7, and
a lot of them,
a lot
of them were really good chances.
They almost came back.
Yeah, and Vancouver almost pulled it off. Like the magic that Vancouver, I mean, I cannot fault the Vancouver Canucks for the magic that they had this year, right? Like that is without a doubt. Like during the regular season, I looked at the numbers all year long and went, how is it possible that this team is winning this much? It can't possibly last forever. And I mean, they weren't like unbelievable down the stretch, but they were still an extremely good team. And in the playoffs, they just kept winning. Somehow finding a way. Against Nashville, they had comebacks. Against Edmonton, they had some last-minute heroics. Now,
they had a massive comeback in game 1. Like I thought we were looking at a similar series after game 1.
And we almost did. We almost did get that. Like 1-goal games pretty much the entire way, except for game 6. And you wouldn't think that looking at the shot totals. Like the shot differential was 203-149 for Edmonton. The average shot differential in the game was 9. Like
that's a lot.
20. If they took 30 shots, Vancouver on average might have taken 21. Like that's crazy. I think there was one that was larger. That was Florida Boston. That was 12.2. The average shot differential in that series was 12. So, but still, right? Like, I mean, but I don't know. All credit to Vancouver. I mean, that's just an amazing run. It had to come to an end at some point. And I don't know, like Edmonton also, like even at 5-on-5, because they've scored a lot on the power play for sure. But even at 5-on-5, if you look at the 5-on-5 scoring leaders in the playoffs this year, scaled for ice time, 5 of the top 10 are Edmonton Oilers.
Man,
and
they've been insane. Like I got to mention this because my brother came up to me before the stream started. He's like, AJ, you better talk about how good Leon Draisaitl's been.
Yeah,
he's been insane.
Oh my god, dude!
And he has been. He's been faster than he normally has been. He's been just everything about Leon Draisaitl that has been a concern with him in the past. Like even his defense has been fine. His foot speed has been better. He is one of those guys that just completely elevates his game, and that guy is insane. I think he's got more points. I think he has more career playoff points than Connor McDavid does, or it's something like kind of crazy.
He has 24. McDavid has 21. McDavid has 19 assists in 12 games, though. That's ridiculous.
I think he's got
Draisaitl's got 8 goals. Yeah, he does. I'm looking at it now. Draisaitl has 8 goals in 12 games. That's silly. Zach Hyman has 11. So there's that. Zach Hyman, 11 goals and 2 assists for Mr. Zachary Hyman. I mean, that is really something. But
Evan Bouchard, as much as we've given him Much as we've said a lot of mean things. Oh my god.
Dude.
Oh
That
my
Boosh bombs,
god.
the Boosh bomb is now because like it's Al McInnes all over again. Like I remember when I was a kid, nobody talked about Al McInnes ever unless it was about his shot, you know? And it's not, that doesn't mean that he was a bad player at all. It's just like that's his thing. Like it's just you give him the puck at the point, he can put it in the net. And it's not like he's, you know,
He's a good
it's
passer
and it's
too,
his
to be
wrist shot a
fair.
lot of the time. Yes, but like in this series, you know, you look at him, he's been scoring goals. He's been doing it all.
Hey, you know who else was scoring goals this series?
Oh no.
Cody Ceci.
That was a bomb.
2 goals
That was
this
a
series.
that was a bomb too last night.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy.
That was hilarious.
I don't remember
Open
there
it
were,
up.
especially, you know, you being Toronto and me being in Toronto, like remembering him with the Leafs, and there was that meme of him shooting from the point, and
Oh
it
my
was going
God.
about 8 feet wide and about 3 feet high, and the camera was pointed at the perfect angle to catch Cody Ceci flubbing a shot about 100 feet into the stands. It was great.
Yeah, I remember that. It was during a playoff game against
yeah,
Columbus.
it was a playoff thing.
How much he's
Yeah.
grown.
Yeah. I mean, he just waltzed right in and just blasted it. That was great. That was
He had more
that was
goals
fun.
than Austin Matthews does this playoffs.
That is a stat. There's
Yeah,
a stat for
yeah,
you. That's
yeah.
pretty
2
incredible.
to 1. 2 to 1.
Just to wind it back to Leon Draisaitl, like if I'm gonna get nerdy a little bit for a sec,
Go
like
for it.
the thing about Leon Draisaitl that I love, like people call him slow a lot, but it's such a great example to me of how when you use the word like skating, it's not very descriptive of anything to me. Like, because yeah, if you tell Leon Draisaitl to skate from the goal line to the next goal line, I don't imagine that he's gonna be like the fastest guy in the league doing that. But the way that he uses his body with his feet and the way that he can protect the puck and also use his natural like center of gravity to generate speed and momentum, and it's like he barely has to move his feet. Like when he's entering the offensive zone, like he comes down the right wing and he just puts his shoulder down, digs in with his inside edges, and just kind of cuts right in, and he's hard to stop. Like there's something about him, and it's this like magical touch and this magical feel for the game that he's got that, yeah, like you could critique certain things about him, but I don't care. Like it's the end result that's like amazing, and it's not as bad, I think, as people portray it, because there are subsections of that skill that he actually does extremely well, right? Like that alleviates the need to be like Connor McDavid or to be like Ryan Nugent Hopkins or something out there.
Well, he's
right?
a perfect
Like it's
compliment.
awesome.
He's a perfect compliment
Exactly.
to Connor McDavid,
Yeah,
right?
that too.
He does the things that McDavid doesn't do so well necessarily. Like, not that McDavid's not the greatest goal scorer, and I know he got 60 plus goals last year, but that's not really his primary thing. I think that was more McDavid, I'm on a mission this year to prove I'm the best in the world, and I'm going to score a ton of goals. You know, so I understand that. But, like, they're perfect compliments. And I've talked about this when it comes to the Oilers' power play. There's dynamism between McDavid and Draisaitl, the push and pull, the slow and the fast. And that helps them so much. And then you add the Boosh bomb in that. And then Zach Hyman, who's just an elite, he's an elite garbage goal scorer, okay? And that's perfectly fine. That's what he's there to do. And you got to appreciate the hell out of that guy because he rocks. He's so good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I look at Edmonton, I'm not convinced that this is going to be their year, but they've got a good shot at it, and I would be very happy to see it. Because, come on, I want Connor McDavid to win a Stanley Cup at some point.
It's about time, man.
He's got
It's been almost 10 years since he was drafted. Like, I think I've been saying for a while that the Oilers look like a team that can win the Stanley Cup this year. And I believe it still. Like, and it's not just because of how lopsided a lot of these shot game, you know, how much the Vancouver Canucks really relied on Archer Seelovs. Like, that, setting that aside, right? Like, the Oilers just look like a team that, you know, you take a penalty against the Oilers, you're in
deep doo-doo.
in the muck. Yeah, you're in the doo-doo deep. Even at even strength, though, they've got guys who can break the game open. They've got Zach Hyman, who in front of the net this playoff has been a menace. I don't know how he's still doing it, but he is. It's just amazing to watch them, I think, and they've come I mean, they've come a long way, and I hate to say it, but like imagine that they were run competently over the last decade. Like if they had gotten Connor McDavid, and from then until now, we're like, I guess they have had some years where they've gone kind of deep, but
That
it's
was more
about
off the backs of
yeah, that was
McDavid
more
and
off the backs of
Draisaitl.
McDavid and Draisaitl.
Now they
yeah,
have
so
the
now,
right players to
yeah,
actually
and
do
like
something.
Nugent Hopkins has really figured it out. He's become this really well refined, mature, older player who's really productive. It's just they got Zach Hyman, who's been such a great compliment for all those guys, right? Like it's just such an interesting team. And I mean, as long as Calvin Pickard can hold it together, like if Calvin Pickard is this year's Aiden Hill or something, a guy who can just hold it together.
Stu Skinner started the last game.
Was he in Game 7?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure he was.
I'm pretty sure it was.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Oh my god! I hope I'm not getting that wrong.
I'm pretty sure they went back to Skinner after Game 5. I think they went back to him in Game 6. I'm pretty sure.
Oh my god. No. Oh yeah. What? Oh my god. They went back to.
Yeah. They went back to Stu.
Oh boy. Oh my god.
Sometimes it doesn't matter though between the two of them. So.
I mean, I guess. Gee whiz. Okay. Never mind then. Forgot I said anything.
But yeah, it was.
Regardless,
it's been Stu Skinner for the last little bit.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. How did I not? Wow. Okay.
Because they did pull him out, right? And there was a big deal made about that. And,
yeah, of course.
And less of a big deal made about Skinner's back in that, right?
Yeah, they didn't. I don't remember anyone saying anything like that. I was more. I mean, I guess he didn't really have to do a whole lot of work either, right?
No.
Like Edmonton was the team that was shooting the puck all night. But anyway,
in 6 and 7, so.
Yeah, exactly. But in any case, my bad. But yeah, I mean, insane series, tons and tons of fun. I think we both agree that Edmonton Dallas is going to be crazy, but we'll cover that later.
Yeah. Do we want to quickly touch on Vancouver before we move on and just give like certain thoughts about where we think this team is going to be in the next couple of years? And I can start it off. I think Vancouver's got a bright future.
Yes.
I don't think that this is where they should have been this year in terms of like the success level. I think they definitely overachieved, especially where they finished in the regular season. But that being said, a decent amount of money's coming off the books.
Yep.
If they can weaponize that cap space properly, bring in a couple more defensemen, like I know they like Tyler Myers, but if they can make that contract look better in terms of getting him down to like a $2 million cap hit and then bring in somebody legit like Sean Walker to be a top 4 guy, or Brett Pesce, or Matt Roy, something like that, that would be good for them. So I think that they've got a bright future ahead, but I don't think that they should have been where they were this year, especially considering they were down an elite goalie and somehow managed to find one.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think it's probably, I would say, just an extremely important offseason. Like there are some important guys that don't have contracts next year. Like Dakota Joshua played great in the playoffs. Elias Lindholm played great,
but I think he's got a contract.
Who?
Connor Garland was outstanding.
Yeah, he's under contract until the end of next season, and he was a guy that they were thinking about trading. Like, I love guys like Connor Garland. Like, again, like when we talk about small players, that's the type of small player that I'm not so concerned about ever. Like. He is out there doing everything, and I love Connor Garland. Every time he's on the ice, I'm like, yep, that's my boy. But yeah, like, what do you do with Tyler Myers? Like you said, he's a 34-year-old who, what is other teams going to want to offer him? I think Zadorov is a guy that they probably would want to keep. I mean, I'm not the hugest fan of Nikita Zadorov, but he seemed to fit with that team and did make a difference in the playoffs, I felt, and, stepped up at times. It just matters what the cost will be. Hronek is an RFA.
He wasn't very good. After, honestly, Philip Hronek, after like the first little bit of the season, was not good. And I don't fully quote me on this, but my brother was telling me that he wants a lot of money. Like,
right.
I like, this sounds unbelievable to me. That's why I'm cautioning it. But I heard 8. I heard $8 million.
And that's not going to happen. Like he has arbitration rights this year, so he'll probably maybe ask for that. And if the Canucks come back with like
5 or 6, I think.
Yeah, if they come back
range.
with 5, I feel like the arbitrator will come down at like 6. and then he'll sign for a year and then they'll figure it out later. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know. I think Vancouver is are they gonna win their division again, or are they gonna be that high in the standings
Not
again?
a chance.
I don't think so. But I don't
least I
think
don't
that this
think.
is a team that misses the playoffs next year. I don't think this is a team that, struggles next year. I hope not, because the magic they had this year was amazing. I've become a fan of Rick Tocchet. Like, whenever I listen to what he says publicly and what he says about his guys and what he says about his team, I really like what I hear. I think that what he says makes a lot of sense. And again, the problem is that, like, they got outshot in these playoffs a lot, like a lot. And that is not a sustainable formula for winning.
Yep.
No matter how good your shots on goal are. And that, I think, has to be addressed. And I'm not sure it's a defense problem. Like, I think that's more of a depth offense problem, right? Like, their depth was pretty good defensively. I think they locked things down pretty well, but in terms of generating offense, there just was not a whole lot going on, except for those top units.
Well, and it's kind of weird to say that, but like, what would you consider their top units? Obviously, Besser,
Right.
Miller, and then
Yeah.
Suter. But
Yep.
I wouldn't have considered Pedersen in that camp. It was more like then when you had the Connor Garland, Dakota Joshua line go out there, that was more like their second line. Like Pedersen, that was really disappointing playoffs from Pedersen. And I know he's getting a lot of heat in the media. And I don't want to say I called it before on our first preview, but I said watch out for this because he has moments.
Yeah.
And he just didn't deliver. And if he had, imagine how much more magical that run could have been, right?
I know. I don't think he was as bad as he's been portrayed.
No, definitely not. But he just didn't score,
again,
right? And you have to. You have to
It's
score.
the same thing with the Leafs. It's the same thing people
Yes.
critique the Leafs for. You're paid the money to score points. He's making $11 million. You have to play like an $11 million player. But he kind of was one of the group a lot of the game. Like, he was good. I thought he was good, but you're not paid to be good. You're paid to be like a difference maker. And I just didn't really see that out of him at all, which is a problem. And I love Elias Pettersson. I'm a huge Elias Pettersson guy, but my thing with him has always been he can grip it and rip it. He's a guy who can, have those little pockets of space and put pucks behind goaltenders and all that stuff. And I just didn't see like any of that.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't try him with Connor Garland. I mean, I guess you want to keep Garland with Dakota Joshua, but still, like,
it worked.
Why wouldn't you give Connor Garland a shot with Elias Pettersson? I feel like that could be a really good combo, and then you find a bigger guy to play with them.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know if that's like, I don't know if Pettersson, I don't know. It's weird because I don't like seeing guys earn a giant contract and then have it, I don't know if it weighed on him or what. I don't think it should. I don't think realistically
this is his first playoffs in front of fans. That's another thing we got to remember too.
That is a very good point.
Like,
that is that's crazy.
Yeah, the only playoff they made was the COVID year playoffs, right? Like the bubble,
true.
and they had to qualify to get in.
Yeah.
So, and then they beat St. Louis, which was kind of nuts.
That's a good point.
And that was the last I remember. It was the last time we saw Pietrangelo in a Blues jersey. Like, oh, he'll be back, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird, but that's his first playoffs in front of fans, and that can be a daunting task, especially in a market like Vancouver. Even though they seem to be pretty supportive in terms of cheering on their players, like they were chanting Arthur Seelovs after the game was over. Because
how do you not? Like, he was a bad man that whole series.
And JT Miller was fantastic too. Like, JT Miller's a dog. He's so good. But I think we're good to move on here. But I think for Vancouver, get the defense
cautiously optimistic. Yeah, that's right. I fall down on cautiously optimistic.
Fine, Jolt Pettersson. Like, if you need to get another forward to like find some combination that works for Pettersson, and so you can have something going for him in the playoffs, and they're going to be solid. And just hope that things with Besser is going to be fine. I don't know with the blood clotting issue, but
I don't know.
I'm hopeful for him, and Same thing, and hopefully Demko will be healthier next year,
Right.
and they can get a real good crack at it with a better roster.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you want to go on to one that probably doesn't need to be spoken about for 20 minutes? Florida Boston.
That series was so dumb.
That was just.
It was Jeremy Swayman giving the Boston Bruins a chance.
Yes,
but
he's
again,
so
Boston
good.
shouldn't have been there. Boston, God, why couldn't the Leafs have won, man? Like,
I was just about to ask you if it rubbed salt in the wound that Boston got completely run over in this series. I mean, I shouldn't say completely run over, but they got run over. They kind of did.
Other than game one, they got completely run over in this series.
Even strength goal scoring was the same. It was 12-12, but Florida had 6 power play goals. So that's not gonna.
But Florida's power play is awesome, and
yes. Boston was not.
Jeremy Swayman can only do so much for the Boston Bruins.
Yes.
Right? Like, what? Pavel Zacha finally scored his first playoff goal, I think, in the last game or close to it.
It was really nice. It was a really nice goal, but yeah, it came a little late.
You need more than more than one.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in a top 6 as a center and not have like a legitimate injury problem, right?
Yeah. Like David Pastrnak 3 points in the series.
Like David Pastrnak was not good all playoffs.
No,
he just had one shimmering moment.
Yeah.
The one that
of course,
shattered my heart.
Yep. Exactly.
But,
the cursed moment.
But Boston, I'm going to be very fascinated to see what happens with them this offseason. Allmark could be out for there was an Allmark for Dubois trade potentially on the table at some point. Like that could be a thing. I mean,
all right.
Like that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy.
That would be a heck of a move.
If that's what Boston ends up doing, right? So we'll see what happens there, but Florida is such a good team, and they just completely outclassed Boston that series. The way Sam Bennett sucker punched Brad Marchand, kind of in a way that was just they didn't really pick up on it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was
a very
crazy.
Brad Marchand-esque moment.
And it took him out. Marchand. And it took him out of the entire series.
Yeah, it took him out.
It was insane.
Yeah, and I mean, and I didn't think he was Boston just kind of didn't seem to have many answers. Like I think they played Florida's physical game okay. Like they kind of matched up physically okay.
Yeah.
But Florida has the skill and they had that all in combination that Boston just did not have. At least not nearly to the same level. They have a lot of good, hard physical guys. I thought Mason Lohrei played okay as a puck moving defenseman for them, but against the Florida Panthers, it just is not enough, unfortunately. And that's no disrespect to the Bruins. I thought they were there, but it was a very lopsided series. It was the most lopsided series out of all 4 of them, I would say. It was all Florida. The shots were 203, 130 in 6 games. Not great for the Boston Bruins. So I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about the series as a whole, or do you want to give the Bruins a prognosis here?
Florida for Cup. That's all I'll say. That's
entirely possible.
That's who I picked in January of this year. Something like that, and it hasn't failed me yet, and I still think that that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. And I mean, we'll get to the Rangers Hurricanes in a minute, but I don't know. I mean, if I'm a Bruins fan, it's a tough loss, but and I don't think the Bruins are gonna come back particularly
better.
Yeah. I don't they Patrick Maroon's a UFA, whatever. Jake DeBrusk is a UFA. I cannot imagine they let Jake DeBrusk walk. In the playoffs, he was great.
Probably one of the better players in the series against the Leafs, other than Jeremy Swayman. Realistically, the best players on Boston that series were Jake DeBrusk, Jeremy Swayman, and Trent Frederick.
Yeah. And I mean, unless they have some sort of ace in the hole that they can turn around, and make some moves or something and add some really major offensive pieces, I don't know where this team is going. I really don't. I think their defense group is okay. McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo, Lorai's looked pretty good. Like that's fine. You got great goaltending. So I guess the angle for me is like try to add more offense because, you know, James Van
Especially
Riemsdyk,
centers.
Patrick Maroon, like, and that's hard to find. You can't just go out and find a point producing center. And if it's Pierre-Luc Dubois, I mean, that's like a do or die kind of thing because you have an $8 million guy who scored, 40 points this year, 50 points, something like that.
Something like that.
And he's going to become the guy.
Or it's Elias Lindholm, right?
Or it's Elias Lindholm. Yeah,
that's
you could
a player
do that as well.
I could see for sure. And like who other centers that are really available on the market this year? Like there's not many. Like they're not. And Stamkos isn't a center anymore. He's really not. If they were to go down that route.
Like Adam Henrique, maybe.
But
I don't think
that's
moves
not
the
enough.
needle.
It's not
No,
enough.
that's not enough. Elias Lindholm is like the only one. Alex Wenberg is out there, but he's not.
But again, like even Elias Lindholm doesn't move it enough for me, really.
No,
like they need
a lot.
They're missing their Bergeron, right?
Well,
and it's such a massive hole to fill. And there's nobody near that level that they can add this year. They're not drafting high for obvious reasons. Like if they're gonna make this deal happen, involving Linus Ullmark, they got to find a really good center who wants out somewhere. And I'm not sure that it's Pierre-Luc Dubois if that's the route you're going. But that was reportedly something that could have happened. So we'll see. But they really need a guy like that, or not.
It's the same thing as center. It's the same thing as Vancouver, right? Like, yeah, you can say we made it to the second round. If we come back next year, there's nothing that says we can't get back again. Fair, sure, true. But it wasn't really close. Like Vancouver made it close, right? Like the fairy dust worked and they made it close. But the shot differential is way too wide. Like you can't be getting outshot 10 or 12 shots a night and expect to win a Stanley Cup. So how do you, and that's to me against a team like Edmonton or a team like Florida or a team like whoever you want, that's a tough hill to climb. Like that's tough. You know, you've got to, that's a lot. And so I don't think it is just one guy that's like missing for Boston, just the same as I don't think it's really one guy missing for Vancouver. Like they're not a bad team, but you know, you've got there's still a pretty, these teams are the teams that you're going to have to go up against probably next year too. Like, I don't think Florida's going anywhere. I don't think Edmonton's going anywhere. Like, and this could be a thing that if you make it back to the second round, you're in the same situation all over again. And if you want things to go differently, then I think there needs to be quite a lot of things that shift for Boston, especially. And I'm not sure what that looks like, to be perfectly honest. I don't know. Because you're right. I think the market is pretty limited. I don't know. I'm fascinated to see what they do, though, because I'm never, like, Boston was a team that I think everybody was counting out this year. And granted, they did win, 15 games in overtime to get themselves into the playoffs. Like, they were the kings of the loser point.
I think it might have been more. I think it might have been more. But it was in that range. Right.
It was in that range. And again, that's also not something you can really bank on carrying you long term. But they've got good parts to the team, and we'll see what they do. I mean, I have no idea what they're going to do, but I guess we'll have to see. I don't know. Anything else on this before we go elsewhere?
No, not really. But we'll see what happens with Boston. Give Fabian a chance, for God's sakes.
There's an idea. You need some offense. Pull up the offensive guy who scored a ton for your minor league team this year, but that's neither here nor there. Dallas, Colorado, perhaps.
Sure,
maybe Dallas taking it in 6 over Colorado. I think this was probably the most fun series, at least for me.
Yep.
Like I watched this series. I missed a couple of the games, but I watched it. Like I loved it. The Dallas Stars are like, they're quickly becoming just like my boys. Like those guys. All the credit to Dallas.
Do you think there's a potential for a dynasty team in Dallas?
They're setting the stage for it. Like I don't know if it's like a dynasty, but I think they're setting the stage for that San Jose Sharks style team where for like a decade.
They're not going to win.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like they're a team that every single season they will probably be in the discussion of one of the best teams in the league. Like, even their older players are like, they're old, but they're not, they're not going to leave nothing behind, right? Like, they've got young players there. Robertson, Hintz, even Mason Marchment's only 28 and he's played pretty well. Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven. Man. They've got guys in the minors who are on their way up. Leon Bixell was pretty good in the AHL whenever I saw him this year. Thomas Harley hit another gear this year, and he's only 22. Nils Lundqvist looks pretty good in spots, and I think that a bigger role for him could be a good thing. It's hard to look at the Dallas Stars and not see a potentially really good perennial team long term, right? Jake Ottinger, I don't know how old he is. He's 25. Like, the stage is set for something really good with Dallas. And I mean, is this a team that can win the Stanley Cup this year? Like, they're going up against Edmonton. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a tough challenge. And I think both of us would say that if they do win, it'll be Florida. And if it's Florida, that's another really, really tough challenge. Like, that's a really, really fast and skilled team on one side of the coin with a lot of depth. And then it's just a fast, physical, crazy team on the other side of it that will destroy you. And I think Dallas is just a very well-rounded team, like up and down their lineup. They just have a really deep, solid group of just really good hockey players. But they don't they have had some guys step up as like an X factor when needed. But I don't know. I think to answer your question, I think in short, I think they're going to become a perennial contender if they aren't already. And I think they have as good a chance as any other to win the Stanley Cup this year.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how this team does. Because I was asked this question by a buddy of mine a couple of years ago. He said, who do you think is going to be a team that is going to really threaten for a long time? And I gave one terrible answer, which was Minnesota, because I thought Minnesota would get a lot better. But I also gave Dallas. And I'm proud of giving Dallas because they're making me look good.
Right. The other thing, too, about Dallas, and I love this about them, too, they've kept all their first-round picks.
Yeah.
They did not have to move a first-round pick to get to where they are now. They had the group. They moved picks to get Tanev. Cool. But they didn't really do, and he's been very good. They just haven't really done a whole lot to like mortgage their future. Like, yeah, they don't have a second round pick this year. They have 3 picks this year, 1st, a 5th, and a 7th. Sure, whatever. A first round pick is a first round pick.
You can trade that down and get multiple assets out of that too.
Yeah, I mean, and knowing the Dallas Stars, they're not going to overthink it. They're probably going to get a player where we're sitting here going like, well, why was he available? Like, what the
hell? Alphonse Fraser on Dallas?
Yeah, like, what the hell is that? I mean, oh my God, do you want to talk about a good fit? That would be a pretty good one.
Oh, it would be. And you know it's going to happen now.
Well, yeah, probably.
It might.
But anyway, I really love the Dallas Stars. I just think the way that they're built is just so interesting and so unique in a way where it's like just up and down the lineup you have really solid good players, and I'm very curious to see how they do against a team with, I mean, they played Colorado, who have some of the best players in the world on it, but the Edmonton Oilers are not only a team with the best players in the world on it, but they have everybody on their team still, and they also have Connor McDavid, who's kind of on an island of his own in terms of like how to deal with him.
Yeah, another
maybe
level.
not. I mean, yeah, coming out of a series with McKinnon, maybe, but
still, Dallas, like, I don't think as much as I love Nathan McKinnon, nobody's on Connor McDavid's level. Nobody.
No. And this series was pretty close. It ended in 6, but 2 of them were overtime games. Dallas won 1, Colorado won game 1 in overtime.
And to be fair to Colorado, they lost the guy who had been their best player throughout the entire playoffs in Valerian Nichushkin. He had
which sucks.
Ridiculously good, and really sad about that. But he missed games 4, 5, and 6. Yeah.
And in 4, 5, and 6, Colorado scored 1 goal twice. I think
it's a big driver.
Jake Ottinger, I thought Jake Ottinger really became a pretty solid goaltender, like giving up 8 goals in the last 4 games in the playoffs, and 5 came in one of them isn't bad. That's not bad at all. and I thought he was making some pretty darn good saves throughout most of these nights. And if he can just hold it together, like I think Dallas has a pretty good path here. I'm very fascinated because I love how they're built. I loved that series against Colorado. I don't know. What are you thinking? What's going on in your brain?
So, in terms of who I think is going to win this series between Edmonton and Dallas?
Yeah,
it's a tough one. I could see it going either way, and I kind of don't care which way it goes at some level because I like both these teams quite a bit. For the sake of my bracket, I hope it's Edmonton, but I don't know. I like personally. I think Dallas is going to win this now. Like I just think they're deeper, and the goaltending concerns and the defensive concerns with Edmonton. Not that they've been terrible, but we're talking about the conference finals, and I think Dallas is just built better. You can make the comparison, like the forward groups are really the strength of these teams, I think personally. But I think when you look at Dallas's goaltending compared to Edmonton's goaltending, it's much better. When you look at the defense, it's much better. So I would have to lean Dallas just for that.
So I would lean Dallas too, and here's why. So I'm pretty sure, yeah, so Dallas is the team that's left with the fewest penalties taken, and it is not close. They have 34 in the playoffs, so far they have taken 34 penalties in 13 games. Colorado is the next lowest at 43 in 11 games. So the Dallas Stars are a team that does not put the other team up on the power play very often. At least in this playoff, they haven't to this point. And I don't think the Edmonton Oilers play a style of play where the Dallas Stars will have to take penalties against them. We'll see what happens. But like if you face up against a fast, really high-paced guy like Cale Makar or Nathan McKinnon, and you still are the team that takes the fewest penalties out of all the teams in the playoffs, and you're going up against Connor McDavid, and the rest of the picture is guys that aren't like really like Connor McDavid, then I feel like that trend should continue. They don't draw a whole lot of penalties, but there's nothing new about that in the NHL. If you don't take penalties, you don't draw them. That's just how it works.
And you can argue that Dallas has had the hardest road to the Cup so far, to where they are.
Yeah.
Other than maybe Colorado
is hard.
Other than maybe Colorado having the hardest path because they had to face Winnipeg first, but they took care of Winnipeg pretty handily. So I would make the argument that Dallas has had the hardest matchups and they've prevailed in both.
I would say if Dallas can keep this series at 5-on-5 or at even strength as long as they possibly can, they have the advantage. Like and historically in this playoff, they've been able to do it. That's the focus for me, because you do not want to put Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Evan Bouchard and all those guys up on the power play ever. Like that just Vancouver did it and they paid for it. Oh my God, I'm blanking now all of a sudden on camera. Edmonton played who in the first round? Oh my goodness.
Who did they play?
Oh, I have it in front of me here on the Kings. Right.
The only team they play, Will.
Yes, the only teams they play in the first round, right? The Kings. Yeah, and so you have a team that also probably didn't really have a whole lot of solutions. You know, that series was pretty much decided on special teams. So if Dallas can sort of keep that trend going, then I feel quite confident about them because I think their depth is a little bit better. But if they all of a sudden, I don't know, if Evander Kane gets under their skin or something a few times and whatever, maybe something happens there and Edmonton can take advantage of it. But to me, I feel like Dallas has a bit of an advantage. But, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I really want to see Connor McDavid in a Stanley Cup final. I really do. But Dallas is just a heck of a hockey team, and I don't know. I love them.
Yep. And in terms of Colorado, where their next steps are, there's not much to say.
I wouldn't be too down on it. Yeah, I wouldn't be too down on them at all.
Just
I don't think they're going anywhere.
Just bring back the group, because I think that group can win.
Hope Nichushkin can get what he needs, because that is a difference-making player. See if Sean Walker sticks around. I don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Drouin. You've got Casey. I thought Casey Middlestat played pretty well.
He was very good. He was very good on playoffs.
Pretty well. Yeah. And so that's been a nice add for them and in a position that they kind of need. So there's another thing that they can carry forward. And he's, again, similar to Dallas. They are not old. McKinnon, 28, Rantanen, 27, Lehkonen, 28, Casey Middlestat, 25. They just have a lot of Cale Makar, 25, Sam Girard, 26. Devon Taves is the first 30-year-old I've mentioned. Josh Manson, 32. Like, they're not ancient. So they have a few more kicks of the can here. And I don't know. This series could have easily gone 7. I mean, game 6 went to double overtime, and Colorado had some seriously huge chances in that game to end it, and it just didn't happen. Ottinger made some crazy saves in I think the first overtime period. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's I think they're in a good spot for Colorado. I'm not concerned about them at all. You just kind of keep the ship straight, don't overthink it, and hope that Nichushkin is getting what help he needs to get, because when he comes back from his suspension, I hope he hits the ground running because of how well he played in the playoffs.
Yep. I'm fully behind that.
Good to know. Well, New York, Carolina, the most baffling team in the playoffs to me,
man.
wins. Yeah.
I said to you when the Rangers advanced, I said, my God, if it's a Vancouver, New York final, I might shoot myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I will say this, like,
it won't be.
I went back and watched and looked at some of the deeper numbers on that series, and yeah, the Rangers, I thought they got the crap beat out of them shot wise. The shot differential in this was 224 to 157. So the average differential was just as big as it was almost as big as Florida Boston, and bigger than Vancouver Edmonton. So Carolina was getting shots, but they weren't great chances a whole lot of the time. A lot of it, they love the chaos, right? Like, that's their thing. Shoot it from the point, cause chaos, take advantage of the chaos. And that is a sometimes risky way to play. It can work. That's how Carolina can sometimes score in quick succession and in bunches. And sometimes you go dry for a while. And, it doesn't help that game 6, they kind of blew it. That third period was bad. Chris Kreider with a natural hat trick single-handedly in the third period, putting his team through.
I was so confident that there was going to be a game 7. I was getting up. I'm like, let's go. They're going to do it. They're going to be the first team to do it. Like, that's where my mind was.
Yeah. And I was surprised, like, some of those goals that went in, I thought, oh man, like, it just seemed like things were slipping through their fingers, right? Like, and I hate blaming the goaltender. I really do.
Especially because he was outstanding in the first round.
He was outstanding. Yeah, he was great. But Freddie Anderson, man, sometimes he just, and you're a Toronto guy, I remember watching him with Toronto. Sometimes in the playoffs, he is lights out good. Sometimes in the playoffs, you go, what the heck are you doing?
He's lights off bad.
Yeah, like the goal, like, I get it. The one of the goals he gave up to Chris Kreider kind of was a weird one, where it was like he didn't pin his foot against the post enough and the puck kind of squirted through. I think that was one of the Kreider goals. And like, I don't know how much you can fault the goalie for that, but it's game 6 of an elimination game. Your season is on the line and it's the third period. That's a mistake you probably don't want to be making. Like, you don't see that happen very often in the playoffs. And there has been some of that with Freddie Anderson historically, where you just watch him and you're like, other goalies in the playoffs don't usually let these in like that. Usually, not all the time, but usually. And so I don't know. It's not all his fault, of course. Chris Kreider, is Chris Kreider. That's what he does. He scores goals and he gets to the dirty areas and scores goals. I don't know. I feel bad for Carolina Hurricanes fans. There was a shot of a kid just sobbing at the game at the end of the game. That one, like, I was watching that game with the better half that day, and she's not a huge hockey person, but she was like, oh man, this poor kid. Like, oh my God. Like, right at that age of right at the age where you start to understand that sometimes the earth can just absolutely shatter your soul. The universe can shatter your soul, and that kid had his soul shattered. And I hate seeing that. I thought Carolina deserved much better, but you might say this, but Igor Shesterkin on the other side is Igor. He is all hail God King Igor, because my goodness, the New York Rangers.
The Tsar.
the Tsar of New York. Unreal. The Russians didn't invade the U.S. with real soldiers. They did it with Igor Shesterkin because, my goodness, what a series from him. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Igor is insane. And, like, look, we could, honestly, I think we're making the Rangers out to be way worse than they are because they're still a team that's really good at capitalizing on other teams' mistakes and a really good special team. Well,
yeah
they're really great at special teams. Like, they're a good team.
Artemi Panarin has been ridiculous.
Yeah, right? And they've had some really good performances. But, I still don't think they're at the caliber of the teams that are around them in this conference finals.
Right.
But hey, sometimes all you need is the best goalie, and that's what they've got, right? Like, they're very reminiscent, but better than the New York Rangers of like the 2013 season, right? Or like or maybe not 2013, but 2014, right? That was the year that they went to the final against LA.
Something in that, yeah, something.
But
like
it's
that.
like it's like the
Henrik
Lundqvist Rangers, but it's Igor Shesterkin, and they have better players even than that.
Yep.
So he at least has a better team around him that he's carrying, but still, like, they're the same old Rangers at some level.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a little bit more of a fonder view of them, but I don't think they're like a world-ending team. I like their defensive group. Shesterkin's been great. I've loved Panarin and all those guys up at the top of the lineup. Fine. I don't know. I mean, if I'm the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm not. Again, I think I'm glad they didn't take this too drastically and just like fire Rod Brind'Amour into the sun right away. Because it is unfortunate that this is, I don't know how many years in a row they haven't gotten to a Stanley Cup final and they look like a team that this is going to be the year they do it. They went out and get Jake Gensel and they don't make it to the conference final in a series where they absolutely blast the opposing goaltender for 220 shots in 6 games. And I mean, but you look at it and, I think you can hang your hat on, game 1 was a 1-goal game. 2 and 3 were overtimes where you just didn't get it pulled off. Game 4, you win. It's another 1-goal game. You emphatically win game 5. And just game 6, it was, you kind of dug yourself a deep hole, but in a way that it's like a coin flip. You just lost a coin flip. And then you started battling back and it just all fell apart at literally the worst possible moment, right? Like if they went down 3-0 in the first period of that game, that's another thing, but to be winning that game going into the third period and just get taken apart, that sucks. But to me, I still see it as like, you don't need to rip this to pieces. You can sort of lick your wounds. You've got your coach who I love Rod Brind'Amour. Every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, if he was an Army commander, I would run into no man's land for him. And so I don't know. I mean, it sucks. I mean, more than anything, I think it just sucks. I love the Hurricanes. The Rangers played pretty well. Shesterkin was amazing. It just didn't happen. It just did not happen. It just didn't happen. I don't know. Do you want to preview Florida Rangers? Yeah. I guess because
let's go for it.
I think this is going to be a bloodbath, more than anything.
In what sense?
Well, I think they're just going to want to rip each other's heads off. Like, I don't think it's going to take very long for a Barclay Goodrow or a Will Cully or a whoever the heck you want to pick to, throw their weight around a little bit, or a Sam Bennett or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, and, like Jacob Trouba versus, whoever you want on the Florida Panthers, right? Like, it's going to be nuts. And I still feel that it will be also a lopsided shot differential series in favor of Florida. But again, if you stay out of the box against the Rangers, you'll probably be okay if you're Florida. But if you find yourself in penalty trouble over and over and over again, they have the guys that can score on you. And if Bobrovsky isn't the peak level of Bobrovsky that you see, then that could also be a problem. But I think it's going to be a great goaltending matchup. Those two guys, I think they're going to want to beat the hell out of each other, not literally, but like mentally as goaltenders. Like I don't know if it'll be a particularly high scoring series, but I think it's going to be a good one though. Like I don't know. I favor the Florida Panthers, but I don't know. I can't help but think it's going to be just really, really, really good physical hockey for 6-7 games.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this will go to 6. I think Florida will finally do them in because, like I said, I think Florida is the best team in the NHL currently. They're just constructed to win this year. The way they play is just so much fun to watch, and I really think conducive to being able to win a Stanley Cup. And so I truly believe in them as a group. Like, they've got the number 1 center, which I still think New York doesn't have. And
right.
And that's a key ingredient in all of this. So with that, I think Florida's going to win it. And that's basically it. There's not much more to say.
Yeah, there's not much more you can say. I just think that Florida's just such a hard team to beat.
They're just
right? Like,
I just think they're better at everything other than goaltending.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
and maybe special teams, but they're comparable.
I think the Rangers defensive group maybe has them beat, but still.
But Jacob Trouba's on that defensive group and a big part of it. So you gotta. That's
but
like
I do
Gustav
subscribe.
Forsling, Aaron Ekblad, Brandon Montour. Like those are 3 really good players. And sure, Adam Fox is fantastic. Keandre Miller's fantastic. But they have some anchors.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, so I think would we agree that I favor Dallas and Dallas Edmonton?
Yep.
And I favor Florida and the Florida Rangers.
We agree.
a Dallas Florida
What a
final.
surprise! We agree.
Yeah, I know, right? We don't agree on everything. You know, you like to remind me, but Dallas Florida as a Stanley Cup final.
Not all, but most.
I'm all for it. Dallas Florida Stanley Cup final. I'm all for it. A really deep skilled team against a really deep physical team.
You know how much Canadians will complain about, it's 2 southern state
and the
teams.
the takes are going to be so good about whatever happens in that series. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion that that's what's going to happen, of course. I mean, if it's Edmonton Rangers, I won't really be upset at all either, right? Like I think we're going to get a really good story in terms of winning a Stanley Cup. I believe Peter Laviolette will be, if he wins the Stanley Cup, would be the 4th head coach to win a Stanley Cup with 2 different teams, which is a pretty cool story in and of itself. Connor McDavid potentially going to a Stanley Cup final. Awesome.
All for that.
The Rangers somehow finding their way to a Stanley Cup final after this season that they've had would be really something. Like you want to talk about fairy dust, like magic fairy dust, like they've had a bit of that
lifting
too.
Lifting the President's Trophy curse.
Right, that too. Yeah, President's Trophy team going to the Stanley Cup final and maybe winning it. I think it's great. Like I think every team has a really good story or a really they're all really, I think they're all at least good teams. I think 3 of them are really good. I like the Rangers, but I think that the other 3 kind of have a step up on them. I'm excited. It's going to be fun. This is where the playoffs start to gather more steam for me mentally after the first round. You know, the second round is kind of cool. I like watching it, but the third round is where I sort of go, all right.
Yeah, I really start paying attention.
Now we're getting right
it's
down
like
to it.
First round excitement level is at its highest usually.
Oh yeah.
Second round, not so much. Even though the games are still great, it's just the novelty of the playoffs kind of wears off, and there's still a lot of games on where you're not super invested, and then you get down to 4 teams and there's only 2 games, there's 1 game a night, and it's way easier to manage. And so now it's nice to have some space to breathe. Yeah, this
like
is our
the
first live
round,
stream at a night.
For a long time. That's true. The first round is a suffocating amount of hockey, but I love it. The second round is also a lot of hockey, but now you start to really focus on each individual game. At least it's a lot easier for me too. Mm-hmm. And you just sort of go, all right, like now I'm invested. Let's get to it here and let's see how it goes. I mean, did you want to call it on that and then move on to the Toronto Maple Leafs and Craig Berube? What are you thinking?
Yeah, we'll call it on that
Yeah.
and then go quickly on the Leafs, and then we'll get to all
So
your lovely chat questions, except for
yes.
David Phillips, who's going to try and trick Will with some random Russian
Oh,
that
don't
doesn't
worry.
exist.
Don't worry. I have my ways while we've been talking.
Pre-scanning
Craig Berube,
all of his questions
yeah,
already.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm filtering them out like I do with my phone calls. Craig Berube is the new head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I believe he's the 41st head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Somewhere in the 40s.
I didn't see all of his press conference today, but I did watch bits and pieces of it. I mean, I have nothing bad to say about him from what I've heard. The only thing I've said about this whole thing, when any coach gets hired, I say the same thing. I just hope that what they see as the right guy is not just the convenient option, right? Like everybody was talking about him right away. He's recently won a Stanley Cup and blah blah blah. And so I get it; it's convenient.
Quick correction.
I just hope
30
that
seconds.
30-second. Why did I think 41st? I don't know. Whatever. Maybe they might have churned through a lot more coaches than I thought when I was a kid when they were really bad. But yeah, I mean, so with Berube, I mean, everything he seemed to say in that press conference it made sense. Like it made sense as to what he wanted to see out of Toronto is what people want to see more of out of them and what they need to have more of. Like the biggest problem with Toronto is that they aren't playing with the speed they need to play to counter other teams. They aren't playing with the physical intensity that they need to play to counter other teams. Like it's too easy for other teams to get the gain and the advantage on them physically, right? And speed wise.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be very fascinating to see the type of roster they're going to put together for next season, because Berube, I imagine, will be involved in that process and find out what he's got and what he wants more of and blah, blah, blah.
It
I don't
seems
know.
like
What are
they're
your
in
thoughts?
line. Like they were.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The big thing I came away with is that these three individuals in Shanahan, in Treliving, and in Berube, they all seem to be in line with what they believe needs to be done with this team. And based on what they've said, I agree for the most part. And I'm excited. Like I like the whole north-south conversation, like being more of a team that plays faster. Like, that's basically what they came out and said. It's like a team that will fight back, but not necessarily in a physical way, is even what they said. Like it sounds like they want a team with tenacity, with intensity, and that plays more of a north-south game, which is exactly what we've been asking for. So I'm really optimistic. And again, like they even said in the press conference, like there's no ill will or disrespect to Sheldon Keefe, and even they,
of course,
they believe that Sheldon's going to do a tremendous job somewhere else. But there needed to be a change, and based on what Berube's saying, I think this is a good decision, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm looking forward to it. Leafs for Cup 2025, baby.
I mean,
had to throw it in there. Had to.
Anytime I think about any of these things, I think about it like any high level job, right? Like I worked in the corporate world for almost a decade and saw, how management operates and the types of people that get put in positions. And sometimes when it just doesn't work out, it's not that someone did a bad job. It's just that they're not getting the results that are needed. They're, and whether it's the fault of the people beneath them or whatever, it's still kind of their job to lead that group and try to get them the results that they deserve to have and that they should be getting. And you change that manager and hope that things improve. And if they don't, you go from there. And I mean, I don't know. I don't see how you keep Sheldon Keefe beyond this past season. I just couldn't see it possibly happening after the playoffs and how they went. And you know what? Craig Berube, like, the thing I like about Craig Berube as a coach is, again, he's one of these, like, it seems from what I gather is that he's not one of these X's and O's, really structural, intense guys. I think you need structure to play in the NHL. You absolutely do. But he is more of a guy who's just like, I want you guys to go out there and frickin' play hockey.
Yeah.
Like play hard, play fast. He used the word north a lot. And that's I like to hear. Like, it's like, just up the ice is always the focus. It's always up the ice. Even if you're entering the offensive zone, and you think you're going to get stopped, find a way to put the puck further north, right? Like just keep pushing that direction. And that's always your focus. It's not about regrouping. It's not about passing back to a guy trying to fly in up the middle of the ice with a lot of speed. It's just get it moving up the ice, like up all the time. And like, that's what Toronto has needed, because that's how teams beat Toronto. Like teams beat Toronto, think it with that kind of mentality, and so to me, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think they're going to need to put some players on the team that have that style of play. I don't know if they have a tremendous amount of it, but I think it's possible.
Yep.
I think it's a good, after what I've heard, like, I think it's fine. I don't see any reason to be concerned if I'm a Leaf fan, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, they have a good team. It's not like the team is bad. We'll see what moves they make in the offseason. If they trade Liljegren and Nick Robertson, then I'll have a bone to pick. But let's pretend that doesn't happen. But anyway, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
And
what
the
are
other
your
thing
thoughts?
is that even Brandon Shanahan was talking about how he picked Berube because it's like, I'd run through a wall for Berube. That's what he said. That was something that Shanahan said during the press conference, which is something you wanted more of in the coach.
And they
Toronto.
played at the same time too in the NHL, right?
Yeah, they had a fight. In fact, they were talking about it during the presser. But yeah, like I just look at that and think, okay, so the right elements are here now. And I think Sheldon was good at fostering. Like he did a really good job, especially in the regular season with this team. And it was a well-coached team. It just didn't work in the playoffs. But I think now they have the right guy based on what they're saying.
Yeah.
We still have to see it, but we'll find out. And
they better hope they're right.
And this will be the last, or probably the last, we talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs for a long time. So enjoy it, everybody.
Until we do a mock draft, maybe we do a mock draft or something with Sam whenever he's alive again. Something like that. But until then, y'all get a break from the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Go Leafs,
okay,
go.
so we can. Well, we can
love you.
We can move to the back half of the show. So again, we're a Q&A show. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. We'll do our quick ad read in between as well. You can support us by going to Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link in the description or scan the QR code in the window to provide a kickback to the show on anything you buy in the store. You can also support us through Puck Preps Hockey, where you can get all your NCAA and CHL draft prospect needs. You can also support us through Fractal Hockey Consulting, my business for hand-tracked targeted player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA Europe and beyond, with solutions for any organization's needs. Again, we're looking for about 5 more players to play in the Golden Bucket tournament this year in front of many European general managers. And trust me when I say, if you pretty much are any skill level that played in the CHL or NCAA, there's probably a team there that you're in their wheelhouse, probably, because I've done a lot of data work for this tournament and showing this. But yes, there's a lot of teams from places where, that team from Abu Dhabi is going to be there just for that, to put that out there. So enjoy. But anyway, you can also obviously support us through Scouching.ca or with a membership to this channel using the join link below. If you subscribe on Scouching.ca, you'll get exclusive access to data tools with insights into draft prospects, as well as players making their way into the NHL, with tons of exclusive content coming in the next month and beyond. We're also going to be doing our Scouching mock draft at some point in the next few weeks. So priority will obviously go to subscribers. So if you want to participate in that, feel free to sign up for an account and give it a go. Okay, so let's get to the back half here.
Before you do that, Will, you're having
yes.
a little bit of mic issues.
Am I?
Just a little bit. It sounds good
now. Am I
now.
yelling too loud?
No, it sounds good now, but there were times where it was kind of going in and out. So if there's anything you see on your end.
I might have to replace these microphones. They're poo-poo. They're kind of poo-poo. So, if you're looking at, what is this? A Rode Pod mic? Be careful. Try it before you buy it, because these are questionable.
Sounds good
okay.
now. Sounds good now.
Yes. Yeah. Anywho. What do we got? What do we got here? Oh, Yeah, I saw this. Philip Kral got signed by the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Kyle Dubas got his guy again. I don't think he's going to be much in the NHL, but I've always liked Philip Kral. He's a team Scouching member. Happy to see him back in the NHL. But I remember watching him in with the Marlies and in Toronto, and kind of a guy. But they need depth in Pittsburgh, and I guess he can be depth. All right, it's starting early with David Phillips. Thoughts on Vitaly Pesterev? I looked him up. He's real. I don't know. I've never heard of him. All these players. Rostislav Glushenko is real, and I've never heard of him. Nikolai Nikulshin doesn't sound real, but that is a real person. Rodion Shimanov is not a real person. I just saw that. Rodion Shimanov is not real. So there's that. All these players I've never heard of, and I'm just going to move forward. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. All right, Luke Hensman. Curious what your case would be for the Hawks taking Demidov over Levshunov. I'm trying to convince Blackhawks fans that that's the no-brainer move. So here's my opinion. I think that is clear-cut the decision you do. I don't think it's even close. I hate to use the cliche, but I would pound the table. I watched Levshunov a couple days ago. I watched Demidov the previous day. I didn't track any data. My data set on Demidov is done. But the Levshunov one, I have one more game left, and I did the 6th game the other day. I don't understand how you make the argument. I don't know how you make the argument that you pass. Like, it's not that Levshunov is bad. I'm not saying that, but imagine if the Anaheim Ducks, had a chance to get Paul Kariya and were like, you know what? We could really use Aki Berg. It's like, okay, I see what you're going for, but imagine the Ducks didn't have Kariya and Solani, and they just had Solani. Like, Solani's a great player. Teemu Solani was a great player, but you have a chance to have a dynamic duo that would also synergize with each other so well. Like, I know Connor Bedard is a guy who likes to have the puck and all that stuff, and that's fine. And so is Ivan Demidov. But you let that problem work itself out. Maybe you don't even play them together. I don't know. But having those two weapons on your team as a 1-2 punch for the next decade is astoundingly tantalizing. And there is no risk. I will never, ever listen to anyone saying that there is any level of risk with Ivan Demidov coming over. It's just not a thing. So if I'm Chicago, I think it's a no-brainer. Ivan Demidov, in terms of raw talent and skill level and creativity, might be the best in the draft. I love Macklin Celebrini. I think he's a tremendously well-refined player, very diverse skill set, really good at a whole lot of things. But there's something about Demidov, like, again, I keep saying the name that comes to mind with him is Artemi Panarin. Like a guy who can just score and score and score and score in a way where the guys he plays with also score a lot. I just think it's a no-brainer. Levshunov, I think he'll be a fine NHL defenseman. The guy he kind of reminds me of, like, think a modern-day version of a Dion Phaneuf, where it's like, I see it. I get that there's some offense there. I get that he's a physical guy. I get that he's a pretty good skater. I don't see it. I've tried and tried and tried with him all year to see a player that is in the top 3 of this year's class, and I just don't see it. Sure, he could develop quite a ways, but with Demidov, especially with how Demidov improved over the course of this season, like if it was October and you put and it was the exact same situation it was in October now, I'd be a little more hesitant. But since the new year, Ivan Demidov has just hit a whole other gear of offense and projectability, honestly. Like, the ability for him to not hot dog the puck as much, play a much more northbound game rather than perimeter and floating around the ice looking for options and looking off guys. He's just being a lot more precise and surgical, making things happen quicker. He's a great player. And it's the type of thing where it's like, if you don't have him, it's again, I hate to bring up this example again, but like the Edmonton Oilers, when Cole Caulfield was on the board, they looked at that and said, yeah, like Cole Caulfield and Connor McDavid would be a really good combination, but like, what about the defense? What about the tall defenseman who can skate in Philip Broberg? Like, that guy really can play. And it's like, well, sure, okay, but you're saying no to a guy who has the amount of talent that a guy like Cole Caulfield has, and you're saying no to putting him with a player that is going to be the key part of your roster for the next a billion years. So I if I'm Chicago, I am militantly pushing for the skilled forward who I pair with one of the best young player in the world. I just think it's really, really simple. And if you want more defensemen, I mean, Chicago already had one of the youngest defense groups in the league this year. Alex Vlasic has really come into his own. He had a pretty good year. You can find other ways. You can find other ways to do it. Sign Joel Edmondson. I don't know. I don't know. I could go on forever about it, but I just love Ivan Demidov. And I think if I'm Chicago, I am kind of thrilled that San Jose has the first overall pick and they're going to take Macklin Celebrini, because it makes my decision a lot easier if I'm them. I just go, okay, that was expected. That's fine. We would love to have another really good center on our team, of course, but we already have Connor Bedard. Oliver Moore's on the way. We have lots of other picks to play with. Let's go and get a guy who is going to score and score and score and score and do it in a way that, maybe not immediately, but over time, he should figure it out and become a heck of a hockey player. If you're the Devils, who are you taking at pick number 10? Well, okay, so I think I've found a way to get around these questions that I get in a way that makes sense mathematically. So what I did was I took all the draft rankings that I track and I weighed them generally-ish according to their relative accuracy. So like McKenzie's at the top and the rest are, peppered around the top, and people like me are near the bottom because the things never go the way we expect them to go because we don't really have a whole lot of inside knowledge. So I reordered the rankings based on the weights. And so if you give me a pick number, I'll say, all right, plus or minus 3 players. I'll assume that that's kind of what we're talking about. And so if you're New Jersey and it's 10th overall, Celebrini, Demidov, Levshinov, Lindstrom, Salayev, Dickinson, Buyam, Catton, Perek, and Yzerman is the best player available technically. And Yzerman seems like a guy the Devils I would be okay with adding. They've got a ton of speed up the middle. They've got a ton of forwards. They've got a lot of defensemen. They've got, there's no goaltender you're going to draft at 10th overall, let alone if that ever is a thing you should do. And so I look at that and go, you know what? It's a good situation for a guy like Cole Yzerman, in the same way that you've got a Demidov-Bedard connection. You've got a lot of centers in New Jersey who having a good trigger man with some physical traits would really benefit them. I know the Alex Holtz thing hasn't quite gone to plan, but there were flags about Alex Holtz that were there, shot selection being the biggest one. And with Yzerman, I think that concern has kind of disappeared a little bit over the course of the year. I think Yzerman has the physical edge that Devils fans will love. I think he'll feed off of that. He can be frustrating for sure, but he's also extremely young, very, very young for the draft class. And I think that you can draft him 10th overall, have more, not limited expectations, but a little bit of a more lenient environment and a more patient environment for him to sort of develop into. Or you trade the pick. That's another option. Tija Ginla's another one that could be a guy that I think the Devils might look at, but I get the feeling he'll be gone by then. Michael Bronseg-Nugard would be a guy also that I think gives the Devils a flavor of something that fans would love, that the team kind of doesn't quite have a whole lot of right now, at least at the level that a guy like Bronseg-Nugard could be. But those are the ones that I'd probably pitch right away based on what I'm seeing here. The rest I think are a big question mark. Like, who knows what they'll be, but those are the 2 guys that I think I'd focus on. Zane Parekh has an 84% chance of being a star based on stats. I think that would come from Byron Bader based on the phrasing. K. I honestly, I have a game of Parekh to do before next stream, so I will do that. But yeah, I don't. Hashtag watch the games. That's all I'll say. But I'm half kidding. I mean, I like Zane Parekh. I do. I just think that he is a very scary player at times, and NHL coaches generally don't like players who are scary at times. But you know, he's a guy at 12 on my list right now. 12 through all the hatred that I've been throwing his direction all season. He's still a top 15 guy and never been lower than 22 for me. So he's worked his way up, largely because I think other players are also equally scary in this year's draft at the top end. But the things he does well are really fun. Certainly a lot of fun. Which of the remaining teams is the most fraudulent? I think the Rangers are low-key frauds. I agree. I think of all the teams that are left, I think the biggest frauds are the Rangers.
Absolutely.
I don't think they're like capital F fraudulent, but they're the most of the four, I think. J Mulk. Evan Bouchard is just Ben O'Connor at home. True. That's true. And that's an EIHL joke, which is always fun. Oh, went too far. Oh, there's been a lot of questions recently. That's cool. Cool. Question about Berkeley Catton. Another scout said Catton's blue line to blue line speed is way too slow to be effective as a transition player in the NHL. Does he need to get stronger, or is his stride flawed? Well, if only there was something that could be done about a young player who isn't super quick but small and light to make them be quicker. I don't know. Like, again, like, we're not talking about putting this guy in the NHL next year. I will say that Catton's, I do track blue line to blue line time with a stopwatch. And Berkeley Catton, I believe, is one of the quicker ones. Okay, so he's not slow. The fastest blue line to blue line time I've tracked of his is 1.79 seconds, which, you know, the one that I always remember as a benchmark, Lucas Raymond was 1.8, right? Like 1.6 was like Jean-Luc Foudy, who was like one of the fastest players at that age that I've ever seen. 1.8 is fine. I think Berkeley Catton, no matter which way you slice it, it is really hard to ignore just how, like, again, I say this all the time. You have a player who does so many things well, and in a way that could work in the NHL, the way he reads play, the way he creates passing lanes, the way he uses his skill, all of those things. I don't think he's going to be a 50 goal scorer in the NHL like he is in the WHL. I don't think that. But I think he's going to be a player that elevates everyone else on the ice. And that's a difficult trait to accomplish. That's really tough. But I think with the way he distributes the puck, he's going to be really, really good at it. Very sort of Clayton Keller-like to me. That's kind of my vibe with him. And so my thing is, I look at all of the data that's out there, all of it, and I go, this guy has everything going for him except everyone around him. Spokane around him, the shot differentials are not good, but he's driving transition results going both directions really well. He's a playmaking nightmare for the opposing team. He very rarely wastes his shots. He takes a lot of dangerous chances himself. He goes to the net. He's not fearful. He's not a fearful player. And so even if there are things that need to improve, the baseline is already super, super high, right? Like Caden Lindstrom doesn't really have numbers quite like Berkeley Catton does, especially in transition. Tija Ginla, certainly not in the same echelon as Berkeley Catton on paper. So yeah, you can poke holes in Berkeley Catton just like you can with any young player if you want to. But to me, it's like, well, yeah, but that doesn't mean that he's worth less, right? Like, it's like you already are starting with such a high baseline that developing the things that are problems will elevate that baseline. It's not going to make him worse if he gets quicker. And luckily, NHL teams are willing to spend a lot of money on getting players better on their feet. So in my view, I think a Berkeley Catton is a guy who, yeah, I will admit, smaller than a lot of guys, undersized, and there are issues with smaller players that come with a guy like Berkeley Catton. But that's not that's not something I'm super concerned about because of the positives, right? It's why I like Zeev Buium so much. There are things about Zeev Buium, especially regarding his skating, that I think are issues, but the positives in his game are he has these like next level traits, right? These things that are rare. This ability to shake off defenders, the ability to chain skill moves together, shake off a defender, step around them, thread a pass into the middle of the ice, follow up on the rebound, play around the goal mouth. A lot of these things that a lot of young players just don't do. And Catton is another one of them, right? Like, so yeah, there are issues, but I'm not sitting here going, I don't know. I don't know about this guy. Like he does a lot of things really, really well, but and like pearl clutching about something. And then instead, and what do you do instead, right? Like if you're not taking a guy like that, what are you doing instead? Because I guarantee you that other option has shortcomings as well themselves. And probably doesn't have the same level of potential impact as a guy like that guy. So I don't know. To me, I'm not super concerned about it. I think that that's something that especially on a smaller, leaner player, you can work on. And I get the feeling that Spokane's plan for him is to sort of develop a little bit more pace in his game, a little bit more north-south speed and intensity, and sort of a more 200-foot intense game, which he's going to need as a center. It's not quite there right now, but when he has the puck on his stick, man, he is a heck of a hockey player. And if he falls, I'm more than happy to pick him up later. I don't care. I love him. I think he's great. And you know what? Like, it's not the first time that, a smaller player has maybe potentially slipped in the draft. Look at Zach Benson last year. Do you think the Buffalo Sabres are looking at Zach Benson and going, geez, if only we didn't draft this guy that made our NHL team at 5'9", 5'10" right away. Not saying Berkeley Catton is that, but he slipped for reasons that I'm not particularly clear on. I don't know. But other than small, and if that's the case, then I don't think Boston really cares. We'll see if that happens again. Find Pettersson some damn wingers, and this is from an Oilers fan. That's fair too. I think that's a thing as well. I mean, I like Nils Höglander, but Pettersson isn't quite a good match for him, it doesn't seem. If you could describe the 2024 draft in one sentence, what would it be? Scary, but very interesting. Like, there are a lot of players with some serious, I'd say, gaps in their game. Things where, and again, I am a person who believes that in general, the style with which a player plays and has played with for their entire lives generally stays pretty similar in the NHL. The things on the ice that they do well generally are the things that they do well in the NHL. The things that they generally don't do so well before the NHL are generally the things that don't quite go so well in the NHL. And where they adapt from there and go, that can shift, I guess, sure. But when I look at a guy, but when I look at the draft this year, I go, okay, like, everybody is really focused on the defenseman. Everybody is. And I think that's fine. They're fine players. A lot of them have some really interesting stuff about them. But again, I get the feeling that when you reach for defensemen early in a draft, and when you really focus on, we need a defenseman because they're hard to find and this and this and this, I don't know. I've done data. I've done studies on it. I've looked back at the data. Just as many good defensive players come beyond the first round as first round picks. And I think if I'm remembering my slide correctly, just as many undrafted defensemen are in the top 100 of defensive value in the NHL as second round picks. So it's like, yeah, you could go for a defenseman, sure, but generally good players also slip to the second round. Good options are there as depth players in the middle of the draft, but the skill and the creativity and the offensive output that you get, that generally doesn't slip. We can talk all day about Logan Stankoven and all those guys who slip in the draft. That doesn't happen all the time. There are good options, but it doesn't happen all the time. So to me, I look at it and go, yeah, the draft this year, everybody's characterizing it about, Anton Salayev, what a unicorn of a hockey player. I've watched Anton Salayev 20 times. And again, it's another one of these things. I came into this season, I liked Anton Salayev. Last year, watching him, I'm like, this guy's pretty interesting. He could be a neat guy. But then everybody just went nuts. And I'm like, oh, okay, like let's cool our jets a little bit on this guy. Like there's at the very least, I think a long way to go with him. Like long-term, long way to go. Good player, but it's like, are you signing up for that long way to go? You know, Philip Broberg, when he was drafted top 10, I remember everybody at the same time. Big, skates really well, long way to go. And we're still sitting here with Philip Broberg going like, yeah, he's good in the AHL now, but like still hasn't cracked the Oilers. And the Oilers are potentially off to a Stanley Cup final without him, right? Without their top 10 pick. So I don't know. To me, I always look at the draft and sort of go, yeah, like there are some scary players this year, more than usual, I think. I think it's a less exciting draft, but it also is very intriguing. I think it's interesting this year because there's a lot of players who I think are very smart, very, very intelligent hockey players who the talent profile just quite isn't there yet. I've become a big fan of Jet Lachenko in the last month and a half or so. He was really good at the U18s, and the last game I tracked of his, he was unbelievable. And he's really young in the draft class. Like that's a guy who really, really smart, still a little rough around the edges, play style wise and talent wise, but I love him. And if you can get a guy like that in the late first round, you know, if he doesn't work out in this class, I don't think that's the end of the world, but I get the feeling he could turn out to be pretty good. So it's going to be, I don't think it's bad. I don't like characterizing drafts as bad or good. I think it's less exciting. I think there are more frustrating players this year, but there are also a lot of really smart ones who it'll be interesting to see where they go in the next 5 years and see what happens. Assuming I survive. Okay.
I would assume so.
Fingers crossed, you know. I haven't been hit by a bus yet. How big a gap? Well, I mean, the bus around here never comes by anyway, so I probably won't get hit by a bus. I don't live in Toronto anymore, so how big a gap between your tiers of defensemen are there, especially the first round versus the second round? Well, let me just filter my rankings for defensemen. So right now, if you're not a Scouching subscriber, if you are a Scouching subscriber, you get to see my rankings as they evolve over the year live in real time. So you can see how quickly my mind changes because of my ADHD. But anyway, I have 9 defensemen in my first round and 15 in my second. And when I take it in aggregate, I mean, I really like the guys in my first round, especially towards the end of the first round. I think getting a guy like Dominik Vadinka or Stein Solberg in the late first round would be really good value. I'm a big believer in Daniil Ustinkov, who's in my second round. He's another guy who I think is a ways away, but at least he's not going to be a guy who's gone in the first round or the top 10 or top 5. He's a guy who might be a mid-round pick, third-round pick or something, who I think has, again, really, really smart. And there are some moments where the talent really impresses you, but in aggregate, you kind of go, okay, like there's a ways to go here. I like Thomas Galvis a lot, but that again is a guy who in the middle rounds you take a swing on. I just put together my notes for his report that will be on YouTube and TikTok and all that stuff. And rewatching a lot of that, I'm going, it's like alternating between like, oh, that was really impressive and oh, that wasn't great. But that's fine to me. You know, you work on things. And if that's a guy you draft in the third round, at least you have the positives to look at. Is there a drop off to the second round? I mean, I don't know about a drop off. I think my second round has a lot of guys who I think are good swings to take, like a Veeti Väisänen, Cole Hudson, nice swing. I think he's gotten better over the course of the year. Luke Osborne, I think, is a great long-term bet. Adam Kleber, Ben Danford, Harrison Brunicky. I've thrown my boy Ludwig Johnson as high as the 60s on my board because I watched him at the under 18s, both games he played against Sweden and the States, and he looked excellent. And then there's guys who I think are just good swings, like Johnson is one of them, but Marcus Kiersey is another one in my third round who could be a nice swing late. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting names out there. You know, like I'd be perfectly okay passing on a defenseman top 10 and drafting like a Luke Osborne in the fourth round, right? I'm happy with that. Or passing on I don't know, maybe I don't want Zeev Buyum at 3 and I wait and come away with a Cole Hudson at 110, right? And if that's what I end up with, cool, right? Like I probably got a good player in the first round and I got a good offensive defenseman in the middle rounds as well. So if you play your cards right, I think you're going to end up doing pretty well defenseman wise. I love Alphonse Frey a lot. And I think that's a guy that you could get in the second round as well. I've kind of lost track of what the actual question was. But I mean, yeah, I don't think the gaps in my defensemen in the second, third, and fourth tiers is actually that big. But like the difference between Adam Jiricek and at least Stein Solberg, they're big. There are gaps, but I think that it's not a tremendous gulf. You know, Zeev Buium versus Zane Parekh. Zane Parek's number 4 in defenseman on my list. You know, I don't know. I you could take it or leave it. There are going to be benefits with Buium, and there's going to be benefits with Parekh, and there's going to be shortcomings with Buium, and there's going to be shortcomings with Parekh. I think the shortcomings with Parekh are more problematic than the ones with Buium, but it's not that far apart. You know, it's not that far apart. And that's the other thing about this draft too, I'll say, is past, I'd say the first 2 picks, it just woof, it opens up. Like it could be anything. It's a mystery box, right? Like what do you like? What are the types of players you like? Who do you vibe with? Cross your fingers, strap on your jetpack, and just fly into the future and hope it works out. You know. Upside for Michael Hage. I would say like a second line offensive winger at best. Like super skilled, super creative, definitely a lot of determination. If you're looking for a guy who can produce offense, he can do it. I don't know how much I feel about him as a 200-foot guy. I whatever, but that's not why you draft him. But he's pretty good. Did the World Championships change your view on Hellenius, Solberg, and Brunswick Newgard? No. To the first 2, no. Brunswick Newgard gave me a little bit more confidence in him, I think. I think he's played really well for Norway. Norway's a team I've probably seen the most. Solberg has been Stein Solberg in this tournament. I think Solberg is a guy I'm really scared that people are immediately overcorrecting on him. Like he's a guy who's been in my first round since when I put my ranking out in April, and he's working his way up my first round. And I think he's a really good defensive player. Like to me, he really reminds me of like a Radko Gudas with maybe a better shot. And Radko Gudas was a good analytics player. He was a meanie pants. He was physical, and just a great personality. And I've heard nothing but amazing things about Stein Solberg. And are you going to draft Solberg 20th? Okay. I can see where you're coming from with that. Are you going to draft him 10th? I think you're taking on a lot of risk and setting a lot of potential offensive talent aside with other players, but okay, sure. Ahead of that, I don't know about that. I mean, I really like Solberg. I just wonder about his puck movement and his ability to move the puck up the ice. He is very physical, but needs to refine his footwork a little bit better. His lateral mobility is a little bit questionable. Wicked shot from the point. And if he ups his skill level, he could become a better offensive player, I would say. But those are things that will take time if that's what you want out of him. But I really like him. And Hellenius, again, I've said this time and time again this season. I've watched him an enormous amount of times this season, and going into the U18s, going into the World Juniors, and going into the World Championships, he's been what I've expected. A perfectly adequate hockey player. He's smart enough to make it work. He is quick enough to do stuff. He is skilled enough to do stuff. But when the pace of the game is ratcheted up to higher levels and guys are really coming at him real hard, even at the under 18s, this was happening. He doesn't really have the problem solving and the ability to escape pressure and create space and get away from the bad guys. But there's a nice framework of a hockey player there. It's just at the World Championships. I've watched a bit of him there, and I just feel like he's just not ready for that kind of a team yet. It's just not the time. for him, I don't think. And he's been scratched and everything. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I was surprised, honestly, when I saw him at the World Championship roster. I honestly was a little surprised, but he's had a great year in Finland, and I guess they felt he deserved it. It's just, he's had a rough tournament, and after the, I guess there's also an argument that he's just really tired from playing a lot of hockey. He just got out of the U18s. He played 51 games pro and then played in the playoffs. He played at the World Juniors. Like, he's played a lot of hockey. So maybe he's just running out of gas. But again, I've seen him all season long. I feel like even if he had 3 weeks to prepare for the World Championships, I still feel like he wouldn't be much of a needle mover there. Bronsek Nugard, though, like, endlessly physical, constantly chasing guys down, making things happen, and trying to keep Norway's boat afloat. And I've liked it. I'm going to flip this one to AJ. Who's winning the cup first? Leafs, Senators, or Habs?
Go Leafs, go!
There you go.
And I actually just truly think that's not a biased take by any means.
It should be Toronto.
It should be Toronto,
but it won't be. It should be Toronto, but it won't be.
Fake news. Fake news.
It is going to be the Ottawa Senators. That's my bet.
Get out of here.
It's gonna be the Ottawa Senators.
They'll go to another Stanley Cup Finals and choke it. That's what they're good at.
This could happen in 2162, for all I know. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow.
Oh, I know, but I still think it'll be the Leafs.
I could be dead in the ground for years by the time this question gets answered. I don't know.
I will see it happen with my own eyes.
I mean, I am a lot older. I'm an old man, so
you're not that much older than me. I mean, relatively.
Yeah,
you
relatively.
are, but
yes,
in the grand scheme of things, no.
Yeah. Seneke at 5. I love this. I love this talk. I do not see it at all. I've been watching again. Seneke is a guy where it's like when people talk about this guy as a top 5 player, I go, I need to watch this guy again because I don't know where that's coming from or why. The only thing I can think of is that someone who works for an NHL team went to someone and one person and was like, we have him at 5 right now. That's all they said, and that's all they said. And then that person now is like, well, teams really like him. Teams really think he's really something. I don't know. I've watched a ton of Beckett Seneka this year. I just don't see top 5 for him. I think that is way too high. First round pick, sure, yeah, definitely. I could see a first round pick, really well-rounded offensive player, really smart puck mover, got a lot of length on him that he can grow into. Sure, I get it. But there's just a lot more interesting players, I think, who bring a lot more dynamic play and a lot more pace in their game than Seneka does. And a lot, again, like it's about risk tolerance. 5th overall to draft a guy who you're going, he really had a growth spurt and we're hoping he grows into it. It's like he'll grow into it. Trust me. Like, yeah, he was barely over a point a game and he had a real good play. He had a real good playoff. He certainly did until the wheels came off in the finals for Oshawa. But it's like, I just can't understand the psychology behind a guy who, when you look at the details and data, you can go, yeah, there's holes in his game now. And there are also, I mean, I feel like there are also players who are further along than him. And then you're going, yeah, but maybe the good Canadian boy will get there. And it's like, I get that at a certain point in the draft. Like if it's 14, 15, 16, where he's kind of ranked on average now, okay, I get it.
Come on, Will. You need more Saskatchewan, less Stockholm.
Yeah, right. More Saskatchewan, less Stockholm. Yeah, that's why you don't draft a Caden Lindstrom at 5. You draft a Beckett Seneka for sure. More Stockholm or less Stockholm. There are whatever. Anyway, but yeah, I think that's nuts personally. People are entitled to their opinion, of course. But again, this is a thing where, and it's my imposter syndrome speaking. If someone says something that is so outlandish and outside of what I expect about a hockey player, I go, okay, I'm not going to call them dumb and I'm not going to think they're crazy and I'm not going to think this. I'm going to go and see what I think for myself. That's all you can do. That's it. And every time I've done that with Beckett Seneka, because people have talked about him as a top 10, top 5 thing for a few weeks now, every time I do it, I go, yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you're taking on a tremendous amount of risk and you are really putting a lot of weight in the dedication that he'll have to putting in the work to become the player that you think he can be. Like, he's not a bad player. Again, like if he goes 5th overall, the team that drafts him, fans are probably going to yell at me for years about like how wrong I am about him. But it's like, it's not that I don't like him, right? Like, he's a good player. But again, it's about who is left, right? Who you say no to is arguably much more important than who you say yes to, right? Because a team a few picks later and they end up with a better player who is better now, it's gonna not be so good. But I like him. I'll get that out there for the last time. I like him. 5th is nuts. Who has second line center potential in the late first round? I don't know. For me, Constant Hellenius, right? Like a good middle 6 up and down the ice guy. I could say that. Sacha Boisvert, maybe. If you really believe in Lucas Pettersson, maybe him. Cole Baudouin, maybe late first as well, could be a guy that I could see being maybe not a second, maybe a third line center for him. I mean, the thing is too, second line players are really, really good. Like there are only 32 first lines in the NHL. So you're saying you're looking at a player who will be part of the second group of 32 centers in the league. That's a high bar. That's a really high bar. So there probably aren't a ton of them really out there. But I would say that late first round, yeah, if you want to, maybe Lachenko, I could see. Boisvert for sure. Hellenius. I want to say Linus Eriksson, but I also get the feeling that Eriksson probably is like a really good third line sort of possession guy, more than a second line. You know, if our first line's not out there, we put this guy out to score goals. I think Eriksson's a guy who makes his team better when he's on the ice, but I don't think he has quite the offensive punch you're really looking for. Whereas a guy like Sacha Boisvert has the potential to really be a pretty good offensive player. I don't think there's much of a third line, fourth line center there for him, but a second line center or winger with a really good shot and really good finishing ability, yeah, I could see that. How many players in this draft am I excited to watch? Well, I'll just run down from the top of the list. Demidov, Catton, Lindstrom, Bouillon, Frey, Stiga, Brownsec, Newgard, Iginla. Who else am I excited to watch? Luke Misa, Andrew Bash is exciting. Linus Eriksson's always a ton of fun to watch. Stian Solberg's a hoot and a half. Then it kind of dries up from there. I always really like watching Clark Caswell. He's always a good player to watch. He's a lot of fun, super, super smart kid. I just love watching Ludwig Johnson. I don't know why he speaks to me so much, but every time I watch him, I'm going, yeah, that's my boy. I love this guy. Who else? I mean, yeah, there's a few others way down the list, like Jacob Tarian of North Bay, just a rambunctious little naughty word I was about to say, just a tiny little guy who runs around the ice and takes runs at guys and just is a pain, who scored 20 goals this year and I thought had a lot of potential for, he needs work and a lot of it, but potential for a really fun depth pain in the butt hockey player. There's a couple of high school guys I like, Gavin Uhlenkamp, Britton Alstead. Those two guys are fun to watch. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few. There's a good selection. I like Kieran Walton just because he's gigantic and has pretty good hands and a pretty good shot. And I like Kieran Walton. He's a lot of fun to watch. Survivor thoughts. AJ, are you caught up on Survivor? Have you been keeping up, or are you behind?
Yes. Oh, unless no,
it's
today,
down to 5.
Yeah. I know the 5.
Okay.
I know the 5
because I love this season. It is
spectacular.
I am so happy that we are through this kumbaya, sobbing when you vote people out. I'm here for my experience, and I got my experience, so I'm ready to go home now.
I'm here to win a million hearts.
Yeah, well, that was this season, but he got
Oh, I
booted
know.
quick.
I know. If we weren't PG, I'd say F off. Very
Right. Like that
boisterously.
crap. Yeah, that's crap, right?
Like,
Like I just can't stand that on TV. It's so boring to
the
me.
scheming this year.
Oh,
Oh,
the ski. Oh, and the
brilliant.
they hate each other. Like you can just tell that
I
they
don't know that they
all
hate each
now
other, but
now
they're
now
like
I
really
think
competitive and really want to kill each other in terms of
I
like
think the
winning.
group left over. I think the group left over now is a good group that doesn't hate each other. All the mentally stable people are the ones that have made it this far, right? That's my read of it generally. Like,
Liz is still there.
well, but she has shown that she can be pretty, she just, I mean, kind of lost her mind a little bit because
No,
she
that's true.
didn't
That's
eat for
true.
3 weeks, right?
That's
Like,
true. She's a
and
little
she
nutty,
started,
but she's
she
fine.
started talking about how rich she was, which was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? But I love this season. It is, if you don't watch Survivor ever and you love petty nonsense and legitimate delusion, like people who are like out of a book, or the types of people, when like I was at Costco today, and sometimes you go to Costco and you're like, how is there a human being that is like this person that is in my way, or eating eating all of the samples and just blocking the whole aisle? Like, how are there people like this? How
Somebody
does that exist?
did that.
Yeah. There was someone just like, they had like 3 samples in line and their cart was in the frozen aisle just blocking it, and I'm standing there like,
If
do
that
you
was
not like
if that was me, Will, I'd be screaming. I'd be like, can you move your ass out of the way?
it's crazy. And so Survivor this season is just full of people. There's a lot of people where you're like, how is this a real person? Like, and you think you have them figured out quickly, and you don't. They just throw curveball after curveball, and you're like, what?
Was hilarious.
Yeah, he is.
You
one
loved
of the most,
him off the top of the show.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm rooting for him. Like, Will, I think
Yeah.
he's nuts. And you're like, I don't
He
know,
is.
man.
But the
to
thing I
start.
loved about him is clearly you can tell he is an athlete. Like, and he is a guy who listens to authority. Like, he is a coach. Like, the way he was going to people and the way he speaks to people, at least at the beginning of the game when he was nourished, his strategy is a 0 out of 10. Like, when he thinks for himself, and the strategy is a 0 out of 10. But the way that he interacted with people, and the way that he like got on their level and was like the way he motivated people, like he was losing and losing and losing, and yeah, at times he was like, I want to quit, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. But it was in a way where you're like, yeah, but you're also a psycho a bit, because you want to quit because you perceived yourself as the leader of the team and lost, and therefore you should quit. That makes no sense. That's falling on your sword when there's no sword, there's no need to do that, right? So that's a little nutty. But the mindset that he has is just so fascinating to me. And I mean, he made it really far, spoiler alert. But gosh, man, and like the mechanics of the game now, like again, if spoiler for the next 10 seconds, so close your ears if you do want to watch this season, which you should. But the fact that earmuffs, every single person who found an idol did not use it and got voted out with it in their pocket.
No, they all got voted out with it in their pocket.
One got medevaced with the idol in his pocket. One got removed medically. So technically not everybody. But
wait, did Brandon have an idol?
Yeah. He found it, and then his arm broke or whatever it was.
Oh yeah. I forgot he had the idol. I thought I remember Hunter having the idol.
Yeah.
So
man, Venus, I picked Venus in my Survivor pool, and when she found an idol and she was like, this is my ticket, I know what I'm doing. It took 5 seconds for me to go, oh my God, she might actually win this thing out of just spite somehow. And then in about 5 seconds, I went, she's done. She's toast. Like, what are you thinking? She was doing the like, oh shucks, like, I don't know, like, I don't know, maybe someone found it. I don't know, maybe I don't know. I'm not saying
Kenzie fooled.
Well, yes, but like, still, right? Like, it's like you're playing it weird, like a weird amount. You're baiting them into thinking that you have something. Like, what are you doing? Like, and she knew she was already on the fringes. So why not? I don't know, like the fact that everyone is holding on to their idol until like Q, for example, holding on to it and not playing it. Why?
Wait, Q didn't.
Maria.
When did Q have an idol?
He found one last episode, I think.
No.
Yes, he did. He did. I guarantee you, he did. Maria knew he had an idol, and she told him.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
right.
she knew he had an idol and knew he was a target, and she was so caught up in her own hubris that she didn't think that they were actually going to vote him out, and he didn't play it, and he got voted. Like,
that's right. It's
so good. It's so good. I can't hype it up enough.
It's crazy. No, you're right.
It's a bunch of insane people.
There's so many people who've been voted out with idols in their pocket that I can't even keep track. I think there's been 5.
Yeah. 5.
Gem was
5
the
in a
first
row.
one.
Yep. Gem,
Hunter for sure. Tiff, Q, and Venus.
And Q.
Yeah, 5.
Insane. Insane. Crazy. And some of those people are like, nobody likes me. And they don't play it. Anyway, it's a good season, definitely.
Oh, it's awesome. And the best part is, like, Charlie and Maria, they like both decided to turn on each other last week. Yeah. And I'm so excited to see how they react to each other, because I know they both, those are the two that deserve to win in my mind. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Sorry everybody for spoiling it.
I don't. Yeah, earmuffs off now. Best in arena goal songs. I love "Party Hard," Pittsburgh, Andrew WK. That's one of my favorite songs ever written. I love it. Detroit using Eminem this year was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, Without Me is fantastic.
Yeah. Those are the ones that I can remember off the top of my head. I'm now looking at a list.
What's the
Chelsea Dagger is a classic.
Yes, Chelsea Dagger is a great one. I obviously loved "You Make My Dreams Come True" because it was hilarious. It was so bad but so good. Zombie Nation Kerncraft 400's fantastic.
Yeah, Zombie Nation's a classic.
That one's really good. What's the Islanders one? It's like
I was just gonna say the Islanders song is apparently a Joe Satriani song.
Yeah,
and I'm
a
music nerd.
Yeah.
But
Crowd,
Joe Satriani's
it's like crowd.
a deep cut.
It's something.
Crowd chant.
Crowd chant. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
I love that one too. It used to be the Minnesota Wild one as well, but they moved on from it. And Buffalo's goal song, I think they have like individual ones now, but the one.
Yeah.
But the one before I really liked the da da da. Because that's how it. I don't remember exactly how it would go, but I like that one for sure.
I don't know. Yeah.
There are a lot of good ones.
There's a lot of good ones. Yeah. I do respect the Vancouver Canucks though for their in-arena soundtrack having a lot of like jungle and drum and bass. Like I've been waiting for hockey to have more of that. Like it is. You want to talk about building energy in a room? That did the trick for me, at least for
having
games in Vancouver.
An awesome one for like just non-goal songs.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's hilarious that Hava Nagila plays at hockey games. Da, 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 da. It's so hilarious to me.
Okay. When you scout Finnish leagues, what style do you see? Finland was saved by Great Britain today. Where is Finnish hockey heading? Well, I say this all the time. Finnish hockey is just weird. It's weird. I think that Finland is a country in hockey with haves and have-nots. Actually, again, for the Golden Bucket tournament this week, doing analysis of various leagues and import players that go to those leagues, the drop-off from the top division in Finland to the second one is enormous. I don't think there's a single league in Europe that has that big of a gap. Like, if you're a point-per-game CHL player and you go to the second division in Finland, you're going to dominate. But if you're a point-per-game CHL player and you go to the Liga, you're probably going to be okay, but not, like, great. Like, if you're a middle six AHL, bottom six AHL guy, you'll probably be a good, useful a Liga player, which isn't bad. But the bad players in Finland are not good. And guys like Konsta Helenius, and I've said this all year, like, know how to take advantage of those players. And when they make mistakes, they make plays quickly, and then things happen. So to me, I mean, Finland is a team that always internationally, they have the magic dust. They don't bring the best teams on paper, but they come together as a big physical unit and they just get the result. But again, that's not a long-term formula for success. When I watch Finnish hockey, it is slow. The tactics are bizarre. I've seen some weird stuff in Finland over the years. Player usage and deployment is strange. I just and it's a big gap from Finland to the NHL to me. And I think when you look at the players drafted out of Finland over the last 5 or 10 years, like they either struggle in the NHL or take a really long time to come along, except for like Sebastian Aho, right? And he's one of the more quicker, smarter, more skilled Finnish players of the generation. So I don't know. It's tricky to do. But again, like I don't, I'm doing this partially to pat myself on the back, but look at Brad Lambert as an example. In Finland, he looked like trash. He could not score, he was getting scored on. It was not looking good for him. But when I went and looked at him and looked at the details of what he was doing, I kind of went, yeah, he's just in the wrong place. Like his play style, there's nothing, like his team would take 5 shot attempts. He would take 1 of them and set up 4 of the others. So what else is he supposed to do, right? Like what is he supposed to like call in a favor from God and be like, hey man, can you put the puck in the net for me? And he'll be like, yeah, I got you, Brad. Like, no, that's not going to happen. So, and now that he's on in a style of play where it works a little bit better for him, here we are. And he's looked pretty good. What would a realistic Marner trade look like? Oh, geez, they're not gonna. I don't think it's gonna happen. Personally, my thought is they're gonna listen, and then people they're gonna listen. People are gonna lowball, and they're gonna go, no. And even if they do, he has to approve the trade. And I get the feeling that Mitch Marner is probably not gonna want to leave Toronto. I think people want him to leave. I don't think he wants to leave. I don't. I think he likes it in Toronto.
Stay, Mitch. I love you. Even though sometimes I will. Say mean things. It's I think it's out of a place of love.
I want to. If I'm a Toronto person, I want to see what the group looks like under Craig Berube.
Exactly.
A new coach. It's not like Marner. It's not a talent thing. It's a mindset thing with him.
Exactly. Mentality.
So if that can get, it's not a talent problem. You're trading him. You would be trading him for dumb reasons that made Toronto awful for 30 years. Like before I was born, Toronto did this all the time. They wouldn't win. They had great players, and they'd go to the great players and go, it's your fault. You didn't show up, so we're going to trade you. And then they go off and win Stanley Cup somewhere else, and everyone goes, oh my God, we're so dumb, right? Like, and that's yeah. And that's what's happening.
Zach,
and so I want to see what they look like with Craig Berube at the ship. And look, if Mitch Marner still disappears in the playoffs, which he did for the majority of the playoffs this year, then you have 1 more year on his contract. Then I don't know what you do then, but at least for now, you shouldn't be in any rush, I would say. Easton Cowan's ceiling. There's a lot of talk about Easton Cowan lately. I mean, he's had an unbelievable season. I think he's going to be a good middle 6 player. I don't know if he's a center. I don't know if he's a winger. I think more likely to be a winger. Middle 6 somewhere. I like him. I think he's a very good player. Super, super smart, super competitive. The NHL is just really, really hard. And but I like him. Middle 6 guy, sure. 3 220-pound forecheckers dump the puck into your corner. Which defenseman out of this draft do you want to pick? Do you pick to take the hits, grab the puck, and make the right play to send the action back to the other end? Good question.
Alphonse Frey?
Yeah, I was gonna say Alphonse Frey, honestly. Like the way he goes into the corners, the way he gets out of the corners, he fakes things, he fakes a move, fakes a pass, fakes things, and really keeps you on your toes, which I love. And he's quick. And he can evade. He's got a lot. And I agree. I think Alphonse Frey, maybe Zeev Buium's in there, but Frey for sure. How many games do you need to watch a player before you have an idea of how to project them? Generally, I have a decent idea of what to expect, like 3 or 4 games in doing data work. And then I kind of just go, okay, I'll see. I know what I think about a player. And then for the rest of the data set, I'll just go, okay, I see what changes my mind. And generally things don't really change, but there are players who have definitely gotten better over the course of the year, and my opinions change on them over the course of the year. We often talk about this guy is too small in the NHL, but what about how tall is too tall to play in the NHL? You know what? I was actually talking about this with an NHL person, and it was so refreshing. We have a lot of questions left, so I'm going to try to race through these, but it was really refreshing to have this conversation because I made the argument of like, well, when you're 6'7", you're a gigantic triangle. You're a gigantic triangular prism on the ice, right? With a lot of holes. Your stick is far from your body. Your feet are further apart than a smaller player. So you have a lot more room for opponents to play with the puck in your feet, in between your feet and your stick, whatever. And the person was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like that probably explains why a lot of bigger players struggle defensively for a long time, and take a lot of penalties because they rely on breaking the rules because guys can put pucks through them really easily because there's just a lot of room physically. So I think there's part of that. Any World Championships thoughts? I mean, I kind of went over it a little bit. I haven't seen a ton of it. I watched the Canada game today, and yes, Dylan Cousins has been great. Who wins the Memorial Cup? It's going to be tough to take it away from London. London looks like a heck of a hockey team. I don't think it'll be Drummondville. I think Moose Jaw has a heck of a team, but I think London. Looking back, should Riley Heidt have been drafted top 15? No, he definitely went too late, but top 15 is a little crazy. Do you think Yzerman is comparable to Holtz? No, he's much more physical than Holtz. I think he's a more dynamic player than Holtz. And I think he has better moments of playmaking than Holtz did, more creative moments. And I think Yzerman and Holtz's shot, I think, are on the same level, but I do like Yzerman. Oh, there's someone. Okay. If Yzerman falls to the Wild at 13, are you taking him or Bronsek Newgard? Probably Yzerman. I have Yzerman higher by one slot, so that's a tough call, but probably Yzerman. Who's my best player available at 20? I didn't know it was the draft already. I don't know who the best player available at 20 will be. Why do I hate Salayev? Because he's too big. I don't like big people because I'm anxious about my height. Stolberg,
like
Frey,
feet, though.
I know. Solberg, Frey, Baudouin, Hage, Stiga, Emmerich, Elik, Artemonov, Chernyshov, Lachenko. If you're Treliving, who do you draft? Probably Frey. The Toronto Maple Leafs need a defenseman who can really frickin' move in all directions and really move the puck and play in the offensive zone. I know people say Morgan Riley there, but that's one, right? I think they definitely need more guys who get the frickin' puck up the ice. I don't think at this rate, I don't think Solberg, I don't think maybe not even Baudouin. I don't think Hage will be there. I don't think Emery will be there. I'm certainly not looking at Elik. I wouldn't look at Artemonov that high. Chernyshov maybe, but not over Frey. And Lachenko, I like him, but again, not over Frey.
Frey
I really
would
like
be
Lachenko,
perfect for the Leafs.
but Frey would be a Toronto Maple Leaf so fast. What goalie could New Jersey target in the third? Emil Vinny would be the one, maybe. Do you have Emery in the first? No, he's in my early third round. Did you follow Gabe Perreault this freshman season? What do you think of his skating? Better than it was, for sure. Gabe Perreault's taken a step. I still think that he needs a supporting cast to help him out, but that's not a bad thing. He's a really good finisher, really good offensive player, and yeah, I mean, he's been very good this year, for sure. How can I watch multiple games on players? That's a tough question to answer. There are services out there that do that, but they don't just give it out because of broadcasting rules, which are very, very, very strict. The Russian Junior League, I believe, still streams their games on YouTube, but I could be wrong about that.
I'm pretty sure.
So that's where I started, and that's an option. Hockey TV is another option. I think that's Flow Hockey now. There are ways to do it. It just sometimes costs money and sometimes costs a lot of money. Sorry. Great job. Oh, thank you, Joe. How's Gleb progressing? Oh, he hasn't been great. But also Omsk, outside of their KHL team, has also been bad. I think moving to North America, I don't know what the heck Carolina's going to do with him next year, but he has kind of stagnated, to be honest. I watched him in the VHL a little bit. I mean, he's still a great offensive player, but comes and goes. The pace of his game's good, but at times it's kind of not. I don't know. I still love him. I think he's got a lot in the tank. He had a good year. I think he led his VHL team in goal scoring, and they did not score a whole lot of goals. But but I'm not doubting him until North America happens and see what happens. But Carolina need an AHL team. Like, I don't know what they're doing, because what are they going to, I don't know if they're going to loan him back to Russia or what, but yeah, I don't know. As a Montreal fan, I think they should have taken Brad Lambert. So this year, who do you like for 27 and surprise us about the 5th? I mean, at 27, let's pitch the idea that a guy like Adam Jiricek is still there. I think he'd make a really good Montreal Canadian. 27. I don't know. Andrew Basha could be a fun Montreal Canadian, and you got him at 27, and surprising at the 5th. Stein Solberg Montreal's taking a forward, I'm pretty sure. I mean, at 5, if you want a surprise forward at 5, everybody seems to be throwing a Ginla out there, so I'll throw. They don't like small Beckett Seneca. I don't know. Emil Hemming, maybe. He comes from the same program Slavkovsky came from. He's big. He skates pretty well. He's got some skill. He throws his weight around. Like, he's a well-rounded power forward. He's another winger, which I don't think the Habs need, but if you want a surprise, there's your surprise.
That's why it's Costa Hellenius, right, Will?
Right. Yeah, true. Or Costa Hellenius. Lucas Fisher. I think Lucas Fisher is a bit of a guy. What does Dean Letourneau do for you? He's a monster and he's playing at a lower level. Yeah, so Dean Letourneau is a guy I've watched also a bunch this year, because I also feel like a psycho not having him in my first round like a lot of people do. But he is obviously very big. Look, the way I see it is he is like the guy who played AAA hockey 5 years ago and is going to the local shinny rink and is 6'7". And it's like, you just can't touch him. He's just further along. He can keep the puck away from you. He could, if he wanted to, he could play the game at 5 miles an hour and he's still going to score 6 goals on you. Like, he's just that type of player. He's got a really good shot. I think he's a decent passer in transition with his timing and everything. I just think he's slow, pretty clunky. You know, there's a real sort of Mike Rasmussen vibe to him for me, which doesn't really do it for me. My opinion on Yegor Surin's potential, I mean, third line, skilled power winger kind of guy. I don't have huge hopes for Surin, but I don't mind him. Do they have large people carts in Canadian Costco? Yes. Yeah, but not
like the motorized stuff. Yeah,
they do, but generally they're used by like the elderly.
Yes,
not
they are
very large.
My nonna, when she was alive, she was using those.
May she rest in peace.
Yes, I went to Fortino's with her a couple of years ago, and she used one of those motorized scooters. So yeah, like they're around, but they're not. We don't for the heavier folk.
we don't really have a whole lot of the heavier folk around that use those, as far as in my experience at least. A lot of it is just for accessibility purposes more than anything, like the elderly and those who need it, but they do have them. Yes. Is Bouillon underrated even if he's high after he was done at the after what he's done at the World Juniors and the NCAA as a draft eligible player? I mean, I have him at 6. And he'll probably go in the back half of the top 10. I don't think he's underrated, because I do think there are holes in his game that could be leveraged, especially defensively, especially for teams that play with a lot of speed against him. But that I'm not super concerned. I think that I just put my notes together on the video for him, and I kind of went sit there. I kind of saw him and went, yeah, like that guy can really play hockey, and there's instincts and offensive ability there that I don't see other defensemen having there. Maybe Frey has some of it as well, just the deception and the skill level and the playmaking in the offensive zone, both from the blue line and from the half wall and stepping up towards the goal line and all that stuff. He just does it in a way that I can see working in the NHL. So to me, I think you're looking with Bouillon at, an offensive guy who maybe has some defensive holes, but you kind of don't really mind because of how much offense you get out of him and how he can sort of, if you run a power play that sort of works the perimeter well, and you let your defensemen step up and into those winger slots and things kind of rotate and you create a lot of motion in your power play, I think it'd be a perfect fit in that situation, rather than just being the guy that stands at the blue line shooting the puck on net, which there's a job for that. Look at Evan Bouchard. That's great. but he's just a different flavor of that. So yeah, I don't know if he's underrated, but he's definitely a good player. I have a cool nickname, Scoucho Marks. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's a real dated reference, but I know it and I'll take it. Thank you very much, though. We're going to call it a night. It's been, we've run over time, but this was a lot of fun.
That Scoucho marks the end of our show.
Hey, good one. I like that. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday afternoon, I believe, this week. Yeah, so Thursday afternoon, we'll find something to talk about on Thursday. But before we go, of course, we're going to read through our little advertisements. And again, reminder that I'll be in Montreal this weekend at Lower Canada College on Saturday and Sunday for the Golden Bucket Tournament for junior hockey players and college grads and U Sports grads to play in front of European GMs and maybe get a job playing in Europe. Because trust me, there's some good perks playing in Europe, even if you play in a place like Britain or wherever. It's not so bad. So, if you or you know anyone or coach anyone who might benefit from that, please, there's about 5 slots left. You can tell them I sent you. And we're going to have a lot of fun this weekend regardless. And I'm going to do some public speaking too for the first time since, I do public speaking on the internet, but public speaking in public, 5 years, 6 years. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
You'll do great, Will. It's a piece of cake.
Oh, I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. I like talking in front of people once I get moving. I just have to be prepared. That's all. So I've been preparing. I don't like winging it in front of people for sure. But anyway, we're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link below or scan the QR code in the window to provide a kickback to the show on anything you buy in the store. You can also support us through Puck Preps Hockey to get all your NCAA and CHL prospect needs. Fractal Hockey Consulting, my business for targeted player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA, Europe, and beyond, with solutions for any organization's needs. And Scouching.ca, where subscription will get you exclusive access to innovative data tools, live access to my rankings, a Discord server that's a lot of fun, tons of unparalleled insights into the NHL draft, as well as players drafted making their way to the NHL. So, producer AJ, thank you very much.
Job.
Yes, always a pleasure. It's been a while. Hope you enjoy your long weekend. Didn't ask you off the top, but I don't care. You did. Okay, good.
Yeah,
you can stop talking about
1600 chess.com ELO. So
congratulations.
I'm climbing up. I'm in the top.
You're climbing the ladder.
5% of people.
That's higher than me.
Yeah, man.
It's higher than me.
On the website.
Well,
that is.
Yeah, true. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and we'll see you in a couple of days.
Go Leafs, go!